Was that Mr. Trujillo and?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Hello, Valerie.
Hi. Look at y'all with your masks. Y'all look great.
Oh, she's on that. I'm more like Horace.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. The time is now 5:35, and I will call the meeting to order. The mayor is not here presently. Will be here shortly. First thing on the agenda is invocation by me. Bless us, O Lord, as we go forward with city business. Give us the strength and the knowledge to make the right decisions. Lord, we pray for your help during this pandemic and economic trying times. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before I start, before the mayor comes in, some of us are wearing our masks just to make sure that the public wears them also. This pandemic is not over with. It's barely hitting the southern states again. So be sure to wear your mask and observe the social spacing. Thank you.
I'm gonna say something. I like to follow Facebook every once in a while. Some things are worthwhile reading. Others are just worth swiping it away. But this one really struck, especially as to the situation that we're in today, especially the going on of the COVID. I'm gonna take it out so I can read and people can hear me better. But I wear my mask while in public for 3 reasons. Humility. I don't know if I have COVID, as it is clear that people can spread the disease before they have symptoms. Number 2, kindness. I don't know if the person I am near has a kid battling cancer or cares for their elderly mother. While I may be fine, they may not. And 3rd, community. I want my community to thrive, businesses to stay open, employees to stay healthy. Keeping a lid on COVID helps us all. So, and a couple of times I made an agenda. I've had people approach me and my wife, and especially me asking me how come I'm not wearing it. Since we're our public leaders for the town of Pecos, we should be putting the example. So, talking to some other people, they're hoping that we start the trend here. And just before I came over here, I was listening to the news West 9, the mayor of Odessa and the mayor of Midland are suggesting, they don't want to mandate it, but they want to strongly suggest people to, not just for yourself, but take care of others, take care of our neighbors. It's the whole point, and I agree with that. So I just implore our citizens of Pecos to be considerate of one another and wear your mask. It's difficult. It's difficult for me right now. And trust me, it's hard to breathe. So, but we get used to it. It's like somebody said on the radio this morning, when they passed the seatbelt law, for those of us that didn't like wearing seatbelts, we got used to it, you know. So, let's not be like New York. They want to quarantine people visiting the state of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. You go there and you don't quarantine for 14 days, it could be up to a $10,000 fine. So, let's take care of each other, folks. Please. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anyone on the audience part? That's what we're doing? For the audience?
Sorry, we have you submitted.
Mayor and Council, we didn't have any public comments submitted.
You have any?
No, not
Okay.
this week.
Well, I do have one thing to read here. Apparently we're having contest. We're having a contest, and it says, on behalf of the town of Pecos City, we would like to thank our local Walmart for the generous donation of a tackle box and fishing gear. The tackle box and fishing gear will be given to the winner of the city's first virtual fishing tournament. The tournament ends Sunday, June 28th at midnight. Because of the generosity of the businesses like Walmart, great things in our community are possible. And that was brought by Ms. Heather and Oscar. And I guess if you want more information, it's on the website. And take a look at the website, because y'all have a chance to win as well. I'm not much of a fisherman, but, you know, so I don't know what I would do with a tackle up in gear, but.
Give it me.
Yeah, the Christmas gift or something. And I guess I'm like, Councilman Orona, you know, I wear a mask when I think I'm in an area where I take chances. It's very hard to breathe. I do have asthma, so it's hard, but you know what? I've been doing better in wearing it. I have been doing better because, again, our numbers are on the rise. Now it's hit close to home. Citizens, we have about 7 citizens actually at this point that have virus. We have some at the prison that have, not inmates, thank God, no inmates, so. We do have some still on quarantine. They are starting to make movement, so we know we're gonna start receiving new inmates. I think the judge said we're ready to make some money, so they're gonna start moving inmates. And I think we have like 490 in the box ready to come, so. But our ward has dictated that when you walk in the facility, you wear a mask until you walk out. The only time you take off your mask is if you're in your office by yourself, which I throw everybody out when I'm in my office because I'm by myself. I've seen both sides. Who wants to wear them? What should we do? Should we protect our citizens? I know that the governor still has our hands tied when it comes to fining people. We can't do that. And I've had our city attorney look at some stuff, and again, with the governor, the way he has things, he won't do it, but he also ties your hand where you can try and make them do it. You can tell businesses wear masks. Can you find them? Not in Texas. Okay. So we're looking at both sides. I mean, the judge have been talking, and we're going to encourage, yes, of course, but I do want to encourage you guys to come back, make another video with Oscar and Heather. Let's get them out there again, because I'm going to do one myself. So let's get out there and you know, let's do another video. I want y'all to come back in if you can and do another video. Valerie, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
I can hear that this deal.
She can see us, she's watching as well.
Oh, you can see it. Oh, okay.
Just wanted to
Hey.
delay.
Hi.
But again, it's like Arturo saying, Councilman saying, I mean, if we wear it, you know, hopefully people will get the hang of it. Are we ever going to get used to something different? And we have in the past. You know, things change. We go along with it. Eventually we get accustomed to doing things, and we continue to do them. But, you know, God willing, this will pass. It too will pass. And, you know, because I don't know what normal will be after we pass this corona stuff. But again, there will be some normality, especially with our residents as well. We do have a lot of residents that are over 65, so we need to take care of them. Yeah. So they can see me on the camera. But, you know, I encourage you guys, do what we think is right for us. That's why we're here. That's why we were chosen to lead. Yeah. Anything else to come before the council, for the audience part? No? Okay. All right, let's go to consent agendas. Approve the minutes of the June 11th, 2020 regular city council meeting. Approve the expenditure report.
Where are we paying for DirecTV at?
So this
What?
is,
Melody's coming.
oh, is she coming?
I had a question for you.
Where are we using
Where-
DirecTV?
Where are we paying DirecTV services for?
We had been paying for the volunteer fire department. That account has now been closed. And last payment will show up on the next expenditure report, so you will see it 2 more times. One is the early termination fee and one is last month's pay.
And I don't know if this one stream, did something happen with the one stream that it went down tremendously, or like is this a separate bill from what we paid the last time?
There are a couple of different Windstream
Okay.
bills, so there's actually a couple of different accounts.
Okay.
We've been consolidating them, so that's where you've seen, if you look at it over time, you see some odd fluctuations. We've been consolidating over the last 2 months.
Okay. And Verizon. How many, well, I don't know if you have a number off the top of your head, but how many lines do we pay for, and can we do with cutting some back?
So we have several things that we pay through Verizon. One is the cell phones. And that's something that everybody's looking at to say, do we need this many phones? Do we need a different type of phone? Then we also have the GPS units for the vehicles, and those are on Verizon as well. And so that's one that we would discourage the city from considering to eliminate because that is a safety issue. But those are something that we're evaluating all the time.
Okay.
And I have one.
Okay.
I don't mind DirecTV sometimes for staff because when on their breaks, like we have TV for our staff during their breaks, they can sit down and watch TV, or while they're eating lunch, they can, not everybody has it, but like I have it, so I like it, because I like watching the news all the time. I'm a news person, so I always have it. That's what
The
it
county has money, we don't. We should put it on the list the other day, Seth. Should put it on the list for the county to pay for DirecTV.
Yeah, because the volunteer station is not 24/7, it was removed.
Now, is that something once the emergency response starts up, they're it's up to
free,
them to
yeah.
decide how they're gonna manage their own thing, right? Okay, any other questions, guys? So we can
I thought you said you had something, or was that it? I thought you said you had something. No? Okay.
No, I
No, but
I have-
Flores or whatever.
it's because I have to send it when Sarah said I copy it and because it's too small here, so I copy it, I print it and then I can look at it bigger. I already seen the recorded stuff. Okay, motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
I'll second.
Yes, yeah.
Mhm.
I have a motion by Councilman Fitz, second by Councilman Saldana to approve minutes of June 11, 20 regular city council and approve expenditure report as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, non-consent presentation,
Thank you.
to commend police officers and introduce Diego Mistarango, Chief. Hey.
Thank you.
Oh, Chief?
Mayor, Council, Lisa Durango, Police Chief. So I know we had planned to bring Diego today. This is where we're gonna have to show you, due to the virus going on, of course, we're having to take into consideration as well safety. So I'll pass around a picture for now.
Thank you.
Just so you know, he's been utilized 3 times since he's got back, which is less than 2 weeks ago. So, one in a criminal, 2 different criminal investigations, and one just a civil request by an oil field company to check their vehicles.
Well, I was gonna ask, what was Diego's last name, but now it's just a 4-legged Diego.
There you go.
I was okay, was there? I didn't know. I didn't know that it was gonna be a. So I was like, okay,
No,
did we miss something
he has
here?
his own handler.
He does. The gentleman in the picture, you'll see Officer Alex Luna, he is the handler.
Okay.
And he is also the caretaker, so the dog does reside with him at his place. And so like I told him, you know, it's a baby. You gotta treat it like a new baby. So they're still kind of getting used to each other and how things are gonna work between the two and the shared space that
But
they
we do
have.
provide what he needs, right?
That's correct.
The city does?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Food and stuff, everything.
Right. Right,
I
so-
know they're very hard up.
They are, you know, and that's even for Officer Luna, it's been quite the experience so far in these 2 weeks having him home, plus the 2 weeks he was with him there in San Antonio. And like I told him, you know, treat it like he's a baby. You know, they need care, they need doctor's care, food. You gotta get up in the middle of the night or the day in this instance, because they're a night shift working crew, but he's already made his first drug bust, which is great.
Right.
Yes, and then he did some tracking also on a criminal investigation that we're doing, and it's been very successful so far. The plan was to bring him here where you guys could see him, but with everything going on, and I heard what you were saying earlier as far as the masks go, but we're just trying to be, you know, cognizant of what is going on. I also have a list of officers that I really think that you all need to recognize them. Not just for one isolated incident, but there was one recently where we were called to a location, unresponsive male, and all he knew was he was bleeding. You know, he was knocked out on the floor, but when they said unresponsive, he was gone.
Oh, wow.
So our patrol division got there. They were the first ones there, along with 2 sheriff's deputies, and they did perform CPR. And when he was loaded in the ambulance, he had a pulse, and he did survive.
Good.
So it's Corporal Felix Salcido, Corporal Marlene Serrano, Officer Jacob Portillo, Iram Sigala, Deputy Julio Orozco, Deputy Manuel Lizardo, 2 EMTs, TJ Sanders, and then Jose Avelos. And I'm lucky because I get to look at body cam. So if you ever got the moment that you could look at this, it was amazing to watch.
Congratulations.
It was very
You
good.
come in with us,
And the plan again was for them to be here. And again, because of the virus and some certain stuff going on, as far as the rise in cases in Texas, we felt like it would be best not to have them all present tonight. But aside from that, I have other stories to tell, you know, and this could go on for a while, but I'm just going to go to the ones I know about. Recently, a vehicle rolled over. A gentleman has no idea where he's at, but he's been ejected from the vehicle and he's injured. Again, I get the ability to hear 911 calls, look at body cam, so this was a 911 call. The dispatcher has the capability to continue to try to ping where the phone is at. The gentleman just knew what county road he came off of, and her continuously pinging this phone, she was finally able to get a location, but because of that, again, life-saving medical aid was given to him, so it was Catherine Borderas. And again, I'm so blessed to be able to listen to this 911 call where I can see exactly what's going on. Another one, and this one was kind of very unique. The correction officers have the ability to help dispatch whenever they need assistance. So imagine yourself trying to give CPR instructions in Spanish through the phone. So the dispatcher was really struggling with it. It was an electrocution, and the jailer jumped in. I got the ability to listen to the 911 call and listen to her giving CPR instructions through the phone, and that was Nidia Contreras. So because of that, again, life-saving, you know, help was given, and the gentleman did survive. So it's, I know you don't hear all these positive stories, and I don't either. You know, a lot of times the officers are kind of like, it's part of the job. It is, but it's the part that people don't realize.
And they go beyond.
That's correct. I've had 2 different officers on 2 different shooting calls. Again, they get there, first one on the scene, you know, and they use tourniquets when they're gunshot victims. So they were able to save limbs, if you will, or body parts because they were able to apply the tourniquet. And that's Alejandro Luna, Alex Luna, the one in this picture, and Desi Alvarez. Both on 2 different calls. They were able to administer first aid, wait for EMS to get there, but those few seconds or minutes, if you will, they're very important. you know, and First Flight EMS has jumped right in with us and said, whatever you need as far as equipment wise, we're gonna help you. So to see the entities come together, especially PD, SO, EMS, it's very humbling, and I'm very honored that the first responders that we do have here locally, that if you never got the opportunity, which hopefully you don't, but if you ever get the opportunity to see them in action, I think you would be very proud of every one of them. So I apologize they couldn't be here tonight. But what we're going to do is I have certificates as well as a CPR Save a Life pin, and for others just, you know, a heart that's going to go on their uniform. And every time I hear of it, I plan to bring it back to you where you'll hear about it. But
Nice.
there's ongoing stories,
Nice.
you know, that you would be shocked at some of the stories. I know Councilman Arana, you and I have talked a few times about just different stuff, whether it's EMS, SOPD, animal control. You should be very proud of the employees.
That's one of the things we need, and we need to be proud, and not only that, we're blessed. We're blessed in this community to have the police officers. I spent time with them last fall, and young guys doing a job that you're called to do, and but with EMS and our fire department, those are the. And that's what makes me sad to see our country going through what they're going through, when people like this are the ones that are actually saving people that are, in a time of need. And this guy step up beyond what they're called to do. And we're blessed. We're blessed to live in this community.
Especially now with this time and age, the way things are going, appreciative that they don't second guess what they need to do, because this is what is showing us in the news and everywhere else, that officers are second guessing now sometimes themselves on what they need to do. And I'm glad that we're not. I'm glad that these guys are doing what they're supposed to do, and hopefully they will never have to second guess themselves on what's going on or what they need to call upon to do.
The more I've talked with the different patrol supervisors or the patrol officers, there's so many instances recently, the past few months, of unresponsive persons where, oh yeah, we did CPR, and to them it wasn't a big deal, but when I hear about it, I start researching the body cam because I want to see it. There was another one at Flying J where the PD arrived and CPR started, EMS arrived, and fire department showed up, and fire department jumps right in and does CPR. So the fire chief, Brian Fuentes, and his crew, they're not afraid to get involved as well. They jump right in, and if you've never done CPR, those 60 seconds or 2 minutes, and then you shift, it takes a lot of energy and a lot of physical
Very
support.
tired. Very tired.
So the fire department as well, you should be extremely proud of the people that you have as city employees or volunteers within the city, because sometimes it goes unrecognized, and I just have the benefit of body cam and 911 that I can listen to.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief, one question before you leave.
Yes, sir.
Do all your officers take CPR training?
Yes, they do.
It's required, isn't it?
It is required, and again, the city last year, they paid for us to have our certification redone. It's good for 2 years. We had planned to do it again in April. HR Kristen Irish had arranged it not just for the PD, but CJC, for all city employees, and the corona kind of put the stop to that for a little bit. So, because it is close contact training, as you know. So, but we do, and the city does have quite a few employees that are CPR certified, because once we started looking, it's not just the PD or CJC. You have your water department or whoever else within the city, or even in the administrative section, that you just never know.
Every job since the military, I've always had CPR training. Here, for us, it's like I said, every 2 years. First aid is every year, CPR, or vice versa. But
And we've just been very blessed by the decisions you all have made to allow that kind of training to go on, because a lot of it is not free training, and you guys have been able to really come up and help us get that training, necessary training. And a lot of times you think, it's just an every 2 year certificate, but till you see this in action, your money is very well spent on stuff like that.
And of course, Chief, it's a reflection on you. How these men act, how they do their job. It's a reflection on you, fantastic.
You know, I do require a lot, I do expect a lot, but if they're gonna be out in the mud and dirt, I'm right there with them.
We tell them thank you for us and that we appreciate everything they do.
You're not asking them to do anything that you
That's
wouldn't do or
right,
haven't
that I
done.
wouldn't do myself.
You haven't
And
done
so,
it, I know that.
at times they remind me like, you're the chief, you know, you need to let us do this, and I do forget at times, you know, I wanna be out in the dirt with them, but we're very blessed to have a great group. I'm very, very blessed.
And a good leader.
Thank you so much.
A good leader, a great leader.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, we'll go on number 2. Project update, Veterans Memorial Park schedule dedication and ribbon cutting July 2nd. Mr. Rocky?
Mayor and Council, Holly Jiraki, Parks and Recreation Director. I placed in front of you just a couple of photographs of the aerial shots that were provided to me by our GIS specialist, Lucas Chavez. And it's to just to give you a highlight of the overall completion of phase 1 and 2 of the construction. You see we have over just under 20,000 square feet of concrete and under 33,000 square feet of high definition turf. Phase 3 will be consistent of the additional amenities that are going to be coming over the next couple of months. We're just waiting to get some of those things in. Our bridge, our fountain is actually going in today. Some of the water features, and of course some flowering plants that we're going to put throughout the park. We are going to go ahead and do our dedication July 2nd at 9 a.m. in the morning. It's going to be somewhat of a compacted dedication, primarily due to the COVID-19 and what regulations have been set forth throughout the state. We want to practice our social distancing and show that we take it very seriously as well. We do have an outline of a program on your last page. It's basically, we're going to have a color guard come in and do a flag presentation. We're going to have little Miss Pamela is going to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. We have Miss Golden Girl is going to sing the national anthem. We're asked the mayor to present a dedication, as well as our Reeves County Veterans Organization representative to speak for a couple of minutes. He will also be doing the dedication. We'll close it with a prayer, and that person is pending currently, and then we will do a ribbon cutting. We will have water on the site. I understand there will be several visitors. We have already advised everyone to please practice their social distancing. We haven't required anyone to wear masks. They are certainly welcome to wear masks if they care to. One last thing, so I finally got confirmation today that we are going to be receiving our plane, and it will be installed on Monday the 29th. They are
Awesome.
Great job.
I was gonna
Good
ask
job.
that.
almost did the same thing. So we've been working very feverishly with several people involved, and I know this has been a long process, and we've been putting it off basically, but we are now confirmed. We have several companies involved that are providing their services. They are charging fees, but they will be in Odessa, taking the plane down, loading it up, and then bringing it to Pecos. My understanding is that they're going to be transporting it possibly the same day on Saturday. It really depends on the hours. And then Monday they will be positioned in our area between Easterbrook and Kerr Street. It's a multitude of factors that go into play in taking it down and putting it back up. So we do have that whole area cordoned off for the entire day, for 12 hours actually. So they will be working very feverishly to install the plane in its location. I was assured that the boom truck will not have to go into our area, into the concrete or grass area whatsoever. We will be protecting the area with some fire blankets and plywood for when they begin welding. And one last tidbit that I found out today, the airport in Odessa apparently had already replaced with a had already purchased, a T-33 canopy. They had not scheduled it or replaced it yet, so that will be coming with the plane, and they will install it prior to placing it on the pedestal. So that was great news to hear. So we will actually have an entire plane. And lastly, I had a contractor who made a donation today offer to touch up the paint on the plane. I did tell him we are, we've got to follow the static loan rules. Wanted to look into it, but he said, I have a painter who can handle this. The plane is primarily skin, but he offered to do a couple of designs. I was like, I'm going to have to check into that, but we're going to find out if we are allowed or what the procedure would be in order for us to do some touch-up paint on this particular plane. But we have somebody available who's offered the service to us at no charge.
That's great.
Great to hear.
So I'm
Good
waiting
job,
to
man.
hear.
Great to hear. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
So we're gonna be over there, watching them put it up on Monday.
Monday they'll be putting it up. We will be, I understand all news outlets will be out there. And we will also, our community engagement team will be live streaming it as well out there. They will also be live streaming our dedication on Thursday at 9 a.m.
Thank you.
Hope to
I
see all of you
appreciate
there.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
Great
you.
to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you, Holly.
9 a.m. on July
Mayor.
2nd.
Mayor, Mayor.
Could we please move item 6 next on the agenda?
Okay, we're going to move item number 6 to number 3.
Thank you.
Discuss, consider resolution 20-06-08R, resolution of support for West Pecos EDA grant application. Mr. Patton?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, as y'all did last time for the EDA application for the Regional Water Project, the EDA is the Economic Development Administration, part of the Department of Commerce, and they have a special program to give money to communities or government entities to build up infrastructure to produce jobs. And so the West Pecos Management District is going to apply for a grant from the EDA for infrastructure in West Pecos. And just like we explained last time, the EDA grant doesn't cost anything. It wouldn't cost the city anything. It might cost West Pecos some money, but it's either 80% grant or 100% grant. We don't know until it's done. But West Pecos Management District is eligible, is a government entity that's eligible to apply for it. And if it got this grant, it would go a long way to get the infrastructure started in West Pecos so that as things start coming back here in Pecos, there'll be some building there and some housing. So we're asking the city to endorse West Pecos applying for the EDA grant for infrastructure development in West Pecos. It's just an endorsement by the city for West Pecos to apply for it. And this is Mr. Joe McFadden. He's one of the board members on the West Pecos board.
Welcome, sir.
So,
We applied for grants before, haven't we?
this will be the first grant that West Pecos has applied
Yes,
for.
yes, but I mean,
The city's applied for it. The city last time endorsed the region, the Madera Valley to apply for this, for a grant from the same fund for the regional water supply project.
okay, same time, right?
Yes.
Okay. There a motion?
Again, just to reiterate, this is not gonna cost the city money, right?
No, it cost the city anything.
I'll make the motion, Mayor, to accept resolution 20-06-08R, resolution of support for West Texas EDA grant application as presented by Rod Ponton, our city attorney.
Second? Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Reyes, second by Councilman Aurora to approve resolution 20-06-08R, resolution to support West Texas EDA grant application. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. McFadden.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, going back to number 3, discuss consider ordinance 20-06-01, approving Texas gas service use of financial instruments for the 2021 heating session, first reading. Ms. Nichols?
Hey, Mayor and Council, in your packets you have a copy of this ordinance. I think we've brought this to you all the past few years. It's just it's from Texas Gas, and what they do is they purchase financial shares in order to help ease spikes in gas prices for winter months. So just kind of help lower cost for the winter months, because that's when people start heating and using more gas. So it's just going to help the residents get the lowest possible gas rate for their bills.
Any questions, Mike?
Mayor, make a motion we approve ordinance 20-06-061. 20-06-006-01, approving Texas gas service use of financial instrument for the 2020-2021 heating season. First read is presented by Sarah Nichols, our city secretary.
Second? A motion by Councilman Aurora, second by Councilman Baca, to approve ordinance 20-06-01 as presented by Ms. Nichols. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I don't see your sign, Councilman Trujillo.
Number
I'm
4.
here.
Number 4, discuss consider resolution 20-06-07R, amending the city manager's employment agreement, removing city utilities as part of the compensation. Councilman Baca and Councilman Aurora.
Both of our names are on there. I think for the most part, you agree to
Yes.
the terms that we had asked the last time?
Yes.
What was the agreement?
Just that he paid city water, sewer, so it's just utilities.
Utilities.
Utility pays
Is
it.
your contract
Currently, yes.
that we pay, the city pays?
Currently, yes.
So are we breaking the contract?
No, as long as both parties agree. As long as both parties agree to the change, then it is fine.
So I'm gonna come back and, hey, wait a minute, not in my contract.
No, it was what he stated, that, yeah, if it was agreeable to both parties, that it's acceptable.
Okay. Okay, I need a motion to approve.
Mayor, I make a motion, we approve resolution 20-06-07R, amending the city manager's employment agreement, removing city utilities as part of compensation, is presented by myself and Councilman Baca.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Ora, second by Councilman Baca, to amend city manager's employment agreement by removing city utilities as part of the compensation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Opposed.
Okay.
I'm of the, you make an agreement, especially some paper contract, stick to that contract. We gave this the last city manager his option, plus he had many more options that was given to him by the ex-mayor, which I won't discuss right now, but privately I will if you want. But that's the only reasoning I have. It was offered to the last city manager, and I don't see why it's taken away from this one. That's all I'm gonna say.
And just to respond to that, that's personally me, 2 different cities that I've been involved in government here in Fort Stockton, and I totally disagree with that. Kermit in itself is not giving that option to the city manager. Other
And-
areas as well, so.
And to put my nickel's worth, and I don't vote, is again, I feel like Mr. Tellez, if you put it in writing, somewhere along the line, it's gonna come back and haunt you. That's just me. So, we have,
I'll be
one
honest.
against, which is Councilman Tellez. Okay, all those in favor, we already did
We already
that,
did that, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, the motion carries.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, this, number 5, discuss, consider changing employee housing contracts to exclude utilities as part of the monthly rental fee. Ms. Christian?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Kristen Ryder, I'm the HR Director for the city. You have a very brief PowerPoint. I just kind of summarized a lot of what's been discussed and what the actual lease agreements are. You have a copy of the sample lease. That's the lease the employees who have city housing get. Also includes information of the addendum and the payroll deduction. That's what the employee will get. First and foremost, the city as a landlord abides by all Fair Housing Act, federal and state. Make sure of that. There's no discrimination involved in any of our leasing or any activities. And the second page, I have a listing of all the occupied properties, because we have properties that are not occupied right now, but they are not fit for occupation yet. But this is the general list of all occupied properties. Over at Massey Park, and it is not Maxey Park, the actual residency is Massey Park based on the street name. So it's not a typo, because people kept asking me that. The First Flight own their own unit, but they don't pay any of the expenses along with the actual housing. They just bought the unit itself. So I did include them because they are receiving the benefit of utilities and everything. In general, there's 2 things that have to be resolved. All units must either be charged rent or have the rent calculated into employee compensation, and that would include utilities. So we have the 2 employees, the city manager and the chief of police, who do not pay rent or utilities. If that's how you want to keep it, that is your option. I just have to know going forward so that we are in accordance with law. So that's the only reason I included that here as well. Currently, the city pays for all the following expenses that I've laid out on the next page for all occupied properties. There's a little variation as far as which units have gas and which don't. And there is one unit that is paying $50 they're paying for their own gas. So for the units that have either a meter that they share, like duplexes that might share a meter, or are able to get their own metered accounts, it's very easy to convert. We're able to do that by just having the employee get their own accounts and set them up. We can do that with the lease, because the lease currently does include as listed for each unit. The issue comes for Massey Park, where it's a combined water, sewer, trash, and utility expense. So we have to come up with a consistent system on how we're breaking that out. And I have 2 different definitions here. I want to be clear. We have tenant, who is the employee leaseholder, and then we have occupant, which is everybody who resides in that trailer. That includes minors and the tenant. So we have units that have one person who is the tenant and occupant, and then we have a trailer that has the tenant and then 5 other people, including minors. So if we're breaking it down for an expense reimbursement per occupant, that would be referencing everyone in that unit. Versus when we talk about tenant, that is the named employee leaseholder. And we have the issue as well that we have 2 units that have more than one tenant, because we have some single employees who are just renting a room in a unit. So that's why the most equitable distribution would be to come up with a flat rate reimbursement of either the tenant or by occupant, or a combination of here's the tenant rate and then there's an additional per unit, occupant rate. That's $10 more per person, $20 more per person, however. Because we do have units, we have 1 unit up to 6 people, because it's a family.
Kristen, how long have the trailers been out there?
March, well, they arrived in February, but they were occupied
Of this
by
year?
March, April of last year, of 19.
So 3 of you were here last year. you all, I guess, assume you agreed to this. And all of a sudden, we're going back and taking it away.
No, we never agreed to it.
So I don't
This
understand.
is all news.
Yes.
So how did it happen without somebody saying yes or no?
It was never
or-
brought up to the council.
I mean, I'm
If
just
I
asking
may-
because again, you've had a year and a half to look at this.
They'll probably.
And then, I'm just trying to catch up because again, you've had all this
Well,
time,
also they're
and
not
all of a
so
sudden
big
we're
that
turning
we have
around and
to
we're questioning internet, we're questioning TV, we're
dime
questioning
everything.
water, we're questioning.
Oh, wait a minute.
But y'all have been here ever since they started.
Yeah, but this is probably
Why
considered
all of
day-to-day
a sudden?
operations.
I'm just trying to get caught
There's a
up.
couple things. First
Okay.
of
But we
all,
never got
before
this.
I
We never knew what was
arrived, there
being
were
paid,
no
who was paying, who was
Okay.
not paying.
There
So
were
have you ever
individual memos
Well, these
Okay.
people get
that
someone
said
new
someone
grants.
could
Now
occupy the
All
unit
right,
for
okay.
up to
Saving.
3 years.
We're losing 15
Which
jobs.
meant that someone could be terminated or
Hopefully
leave,
nothing.
still stay in the
Yeah.
unit, and go work at the oil field.
Yeah.
So part of the reason that I created this was a month-to-month lease, which is perfectly legal and in accordance with Texas law and fair housing law. So that's the first thing. At the time, we didn't have everything set up at those trailers. We didn't have the internet right away. We didn't have the electric right away. We didn't have all those things. So that was kind of what this was based on. Verbally, the employees who moved in were told that internet would be charged at some point when it was set up. Because when they moved in, they started asking, well, can I get my own internet? Can I get my own DirecTV? Can I do this? So, and I think 1 or 2 of them may have, but they're still being charged because the internet is accessible to them. I don't know if they've kept it or what that individual is, but everyone, including myself and everyone else over there, is all being charged internet now. We just did not address any difference with utilities because that's how all the utilities throughout the city are handled. And we have to, in accordance with the Fair Housing Act, excuse me, we either implement it everywhere or nowhere. We have to be consistent so it's not an issue of discrimination.
Yes, I feel like we need to implement it across the board.
Mhm.
And only because I don't have the numbers with me, but everybody else is being charged per usage, and the amount on the utilities on those mobile homes over there didn't seem, it was just a flat rate.
It's approximately $16,000 for the past 9 months
Okay.
for all 12 units over there. And that's where that $60 comes in, was breaking it down by approximately 30 occupants. There may be 1 or 2 that I'm not quite catching, but the number of occupants, tenants are 15. Because again, we have the trailers with multiple tenants. We have up to 30 occupants. So breaking that down by an occupant rate is where that $60 comes in. But you have to realize also, we have a couple that have minor children over there. While of course, their usage is going to reflect that they have more people. If you just go with a straight $60 per occupant, someone's gonna get a $300 more bill a month, and that's, defeats the purpose of having that. So if we come up with, based on whatever your guidance is, here's the tenant rate, and then if you have $10 more, $20, $30 more per occupant, that's where, or a cap rate per occupant, and then it's capped maximum here. But because we don't have everything broken down over at Massey Park, that's where we come into this issue, where we're asking for your guidance of how to handle this.
So are all mobile homes set off of one?
No, each mobile home has its own water meter and its own sewer connection. So they all have a unique meter and a unique sewer connection and a unique electric meter.
But
So
the
every-
billing is not necessarily broken down the same way, which is the problem, because I've researched that with Melanie, the finance director.
So right now, the city pays for it. Let's just.
Yes.
Correct.
Let's talk
Water,
about the electric.
sewer.
The electric, the city pays for the electric.
No, not at all. Everyone is on their own
Everybody
meter
has
for
their own
electric.
So then.
And they reimburse the city for internet. So electric and internet are being paid. Water, sewer, and trash, as went around with all the other units.
But right now, each one has its own
Electric.
water meter and sewer tap, so they could charge them per individual.
They're not accurately billing is the problem with that.
But accounts could be set up, yes.
Yes, that would be the best way to do this, set up an account for each one.
Because right now we have meters that have gone up to $500, which is not reflecting actual use, and we have meters that are down to $100.
That's because of the
Again,
meter.
they're not reflecting actual use. but everyone does have their own electric, and they are paying for internet. And then
Is
the
that-
trash rate is $23.50, factored into that.
Does that apply, to the, apartments at the, not the trailers, but there, I know there's some police officers at the trailers
So,
and some police officers at apartments.
we have all different city employees in all different housing.
Okay.
We have, admin, we have CJC, we have PD, we have every area of the city, we have public works, we have every area of the city covered. And then,
those are set up the same way.
everything is set up right now for the city pays for water, sewer, and trash, which is not unheard of in a lease. It really isn't. Electric, yes, that's.
I mean, we get that, Christian, it's just, it's not, I hate to use this word fair, it's not right for this employee to have his own house and pay for utilities, but because this one got lucky enough to live in city housing, they don't have to pay for utilities, you know what I mean? So what we want is basically everybody pay for the utilities across the board. And we would like for everybody to have their own separate account so that they can pay for their usage, just like every other citizen does.
Right, but it has to reflect correct and actual usage, which is the difference over at Massey.
So for now, how long, I mean, what's the time frame for us to get something calculated for it to actually read the right way at Massey?
I will have to go back to utility billing. I can bring it back next month to you.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm sure it's not gonna happen tomorrow, but if we can work on that so that everybody can actually, have their own.
It's actually not a very lengthy process. If they've got one account that's tabulating all of the consumption across those meters, they'll just set up an individual account for every trailer. It'll probably take a couple of weeks in the billing system to create the account structure. So within the next 30 days, that could be done.
I can bring it back next month.
Yep.
And
No, again, being the oddball here, because I don't know. I feel y'all did what you did for like the prison. We brought them trailers because we needed people to come to work, right? So we start charging them, they say, well, I'm not gonna pay. You brought me here, you offered me a housing, all of a sudden now you wanna charge me because you needed workers. Now you don't need me anymore, you're gonna stab me in the back and charge me. Pretty much is what we're saying, right?
And Massey Park is next to the airport, and as someone who lives next to the airport, it is 24 hours a day that you get planes and ambulances flying out of there.
I'm just getting back to the reason that we started this, because again, the county did it, the school did it, everybody said, we're gonna bill because we can't get nobody to come to Pecos, Texas, right? So, dang oil field hit, everybody are coming in, all our man camps start coming up, and our renters start tripling up on what they're renting. I'm just trying to figure out. Y'all started this, and all of a sudden you're turning around and saying, no, screw you. I have to pay, you have to pay. Well, that wasn't on the table when you asked me to work for you.
It was never brought up in that manner.
I understand what you're saying, but
Apparently not.
how can you not bring it up? How can you not discuss? It's the same way when we brought trailers, we told the officer, you're gonna pay $300. That's gonna pay your electric bill, that's gonna pay your water bill, but you're gonna pay $350, I think, period. You want a TV, you put an antenna out there and grab your own TV, right? That's what the contract reads. So why did we not create contracts for all these people that got a house and said, this is your contract, you're gonna pay this, you're gonna pay that, and we just said, okay, no, move into a trailer. I don't understand how that works.
Was never brought up to the council.
But
The
no
only
one ever
thing
bothered
we
to
do-
ask either. Now we're asking because we have no money, so now we're gonna
Yeah.
try and squeeze out the lemon
Yeah.
after the fact.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, but yes.
Yep.
I mean, would you rather?
Like again, I wasn't here, so I'm asking.
Either,
I
like
wanna
said,
know how is
either
it?
we charge
How
everybody
is it
across
that
the
all
board,
this came
or
about?
everybody gets it
I'm
free?
trying to tell you.
I mean, what would you like? Everybody gets it free? We lose out on every 190 something revenue, employees, utility revenue? Because the circumstance could change a year or two from now, but for now, because of things the way they are, I mean, we have to do what we have to do.
Listen, why don't they have contracts? I mean, we make our own sign a contract. This is what you're gonna be. It ain't gonna change for 6 months.
Yeah, nobody
a
signed
year.
contracts at all. I mean,
Well, the lease is what.
the lease
That's the
agreement.
only
But your lease
thing
is
that
month
I
to
created
month.
when I got here,
Yes,
because
because-
there wasn't anything in place. There was memos that said you can live here for up to 3 years. It wasn't a lease, it didn't have terms, it didn't describe anything. It was a memo, and it also said, hey, you can be bumped if we need to put PD in there. And that was, again, that was just a memo that was issued. Some people had them, some people didn't. So we formalized the process into a lease, and we did month to month to make sure that we're covered if the housing needed to turn over.
Ms. Irie, with it being month to month,
Yes.
we have to give them 30 days.
They
Is
do,
that
we
correct?
do, if we make a change to the lease, there's still a 30-day notice for us or them.
And so I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm just trying to figure out how we got to the point of saying, well, now you're screwed,
It's
you
just
gotta pay money.
circumstances. I wouldn't say screwed because they still have a job, okay? I
Yeah,
mean,
but
come on,
part of the
David.
job
Like,
was this, what if I say, well, I don't want this?
It is
I'll
an
be
at-will
leaving.
employment. If they
No,
don't like
remember
it,
what
they
she
can
just
go
said, though.
elsewhere.
So
She
you're not
said that-
concerned that we will lose staff
If just
because
as quick as
we're
we fire
turning
them, we can
around
hire
and
them.
changing the rules in the middle of the game?
But did you
No.
not hear what she said a while ago? If a police officer needed it, the police officer came first, so we would boot out somebody to put a police officer in there. So, you talk about fairness, I mean, it's just, right now, we're in a situation where we're gonna have to crunch pennies and dimes or nickels or pennies, whatever. Some people say pennies ain't worth a penny anymore, but I would say crunch
I'm
pennies.
just trying to figure out how.
Yeah, and a lot of it is everybody pitching in to help the situation that we're all in. Because we're all in this together, the whole town. And, we can give things to people, but at the time that we're at, now we're asking them, help us out. Here, maybe in the next year or so, everything lifts up and then we can go right back to. But this
And of
time,
course-
sign a contract and say, this is what I want.
And I understand what you're saying, but now, I guarantee you at the prison, there's not one officer with his overtime that does not make over $80,000 a year. I have some that make $120,000 a year because of their overtime. We don't do overtime for our employees. And so our employees aren't paid $12, $13 an hour.
Who's employees?
No, our
Oh,
employees.
our
How
not-
high are our employees paid an hourly?
The minimum starting pay is $14 an hour.
14.
But we do offer
But
overtime.
there's we offer overtime, and most employees are at least at $16.50. We only have 2 employees that are that low, they're absolute entry level. Most employees start at $16.50, plus there's overtime in those areas in Public Works.
So we're saying
And
they
over
can
at
afford,
CJC and
they
PD,
can
there's
afford.
constant overtime.
I just don't wanna hit somebody when they're down if you can't afford it. Because again, I mean, can they afford it? I mean,
And the majority.
people spend the way they make.
The majority of employees in city housing are PD and CJC.
I took a
Dispatch.
$1,000 cut and paid living position I took, because I gave away my overtime, because I was tired of being on call.
Yeah.
I'm making.
And I understand, I mean, you
adjust
can
your
make
budget,
it.
you adjust your budget accordingly. I've had jobs where I went from $16 an hour to $5.75 an hour, I adjusted. It's just a matter of.
It's a matter of adjusting and all that. And, people get used to doing it this way, but when your back is against the wall
I'll say this.
and you got a job at the moment.
The ones that I have spoken to that live in those, city housing do not mind. They have to do what they have to do.
And again, I'm just trying to figure.
If you decide that we go to individual meters, it will also have to be resolved for the individuals that there's 3 tenants in one trailer.
They can share that cost.
Who holds the account, who's
One
required to
holds
hold
the
the account.
They'll have to work that on
Yeah,
Yeah.
No, you do it, I'm leaving.
Then the lease would have to be modified to affect
So
that.
the rent doesn't change at all on this
That's
trailer?
what, yeah, and I was wondering about the rent.
That doesn't change at all, does it?
That's up to you. I mean,
Oh.
we're indicating and talking about the utilities and the meters.
Yeah, because, and like the mayor's saying, $16 an hour is not what, if you work in the oil field, you make a lot more than that, so we can't compete. City employees can't compete, or even the police officer can't compete with the oil field pay. So, but we're discussing utilities. Utilities is an expense upward of what they pay for rent, but I believe if we leave the rent alone, leave it alone, just ask them to take care of their, because it'll also make it just like like what we're experiencing today with water bills and all that. You know, everybody's still crying about, and I don't blame them because I'm looking at it too. But it kind of puts you to take control. Let's take control a little bit of ourselves, because we gotta put, you know, we put ourselves in a budget. Because if this thing doesn't go up, I mean, you know, my job ain't promised. None of our jobs are promised, and we just gotta take care of stabilize what we have today. No extra purchases, no traveling, just you know, to control so that we can live our normal life at the moment.
You also run into the issue of if you have multiple tenants in a trailer and one has the account, the other person has no recourse to get that money from them. Quite literally, they have absolutely no recourse. So someone, and all they can do is complain, but they'd have to bring literally a legal action against them for the $50 a month they owe them for the water. You know, and other than coming and complaining to the city, which we would have no recourse if that's how we set it up, that only one person has the account, and we don't have a set minimum or a cap or however you want to do it per tenant or per occupant or any combination, then the people living in that trailer are completely beholden to the person who has the account. And if they decide not to pay, there's nothing that really that employee can do other than complain. And as a city, we actually could not intervene if we wanted to.
I think it's a city employee, right? Because that's all we have, city employees.
Yeah, they're all city employees and families.
Well, that's your violation of policy.
I was gonna ask that, would that be maybe,
If it's a contract, we can put it in a contract.
It would be a private action though, so I'd be concerned about any way to really enforce that. Because we're only requiring that it be paid, and whoever the account holder pays it.
Because the city
They'll let it close and then they'll open it under the other guy's name, and then they'll let that one close and open it under the other guy's name.
I'm not saying
Hey.
the tenant, I'm not saying the named tenant account holder doesn't pay.
Anyway.
That we have an action against. But I'm saying if his two roommates get mad at him and don't want to reimburse him, you know, or they're tight that month or whatever it is, then there's really no way for him to collect, short of going to, you know, a justice peace or bringing an action. The city wouldn't get involved in that.
What I heard from a friend of mine many years ago, I used to rent to my friends, my closest friends, to come and stay with me. Those are the ones that, excuse the expression, quote unquote, those are the ones that screwed the oath. I got people that I barely knew, they helped me pay the bills,
Yeah.
but they want to stay. So,
Okay, so how we,
so should we hold on? So she can bring us something back, or they can help us with, you know, at least everybody having their own
better numbers,
account?
breakdown.
And you said we only have one home that has 3 tenants?
We have 2 that have multiple tenants.
And multiple tenants, you mean?
Not family.
There are
Family
3
members or-
employees in one, and there are 2 employees in the other. However, they're only being charged the rate of 3 because we reserved to keep that one room open if we need it for emergencies or to get someone here. But there's restrictions on who we can put in there because it's 3 single male. So we can't have one of the 2 bring their family and live with an employee who's single male. So we have 1 bedroom open, 1 room out of that unit, and then we have another unit that's occupied with 3 tenants.
Okay, so right now, one's a tenant, one's an occupant.
No,
No, all
no,
3 are
the
tenants.
2, there's 2 units that one unit is 2 tenants with an open room, and the other is 3 tenants, 1 for each bedroom.
So they all
And they each
tenants.
have their own lease, and it indicates renting a room instead of the entire unit.
And how much do they rent?
The rent for the units start at $650, $600, well, excuse me now, $700, $650, and $600. So if there's 3 in there, the total unit rent is $600 divided by the 3.
Yeah.
The 1 unit is still being divided by 3, so it's about $95 per pay each tenant pays.
Okay, so
In a unit with 3 bedrooms.
if you could get an average of what the utility rate would be added to the total amount of rent, and they could split that 3 ways, that's viable.
Correct, but there would need to be a named account holder.
Not as specific as the whole, neither.
But we'd have to do that consistently
Yeah,
for
it has to be the
everyone.
same. It has to
That's
be-
the issue. So you can decide that this is the rate we're gonna charge
Absolutely.
everyone
Sub-meter.
consistent.
That would create a lot of problems on the landlord side.
So yeah, so we have to do it all the same way, either way you decide.
Mhm.
But we can't say, okay, well, this unit we do this way we do this way, this way we do this way. We have to be consistent across.
Yo no me lo pedí porque no pagar electricidad.
Okay, so who pays the 700?
That is for a single rent. So myself, with one person, I pay 700. When you have two people, it's two city employees. Doesn't matter if there's 5 people in there. Like, so we have an employee who has a spouse and 4 children. They pay 700 because they have the whole unit. When we have 2 employees who are 2 tenants, they're paying $650. And then when we have 3, they're paying $600.
Broken down, split 3 ways.
Split 3 ways, and payroll deducts 3 ways.
So it's payroll deductible, you could pull it out of their account without.
Each one pays 600?
No, that the total
I'm
amount.
not telling you that credit
But
over there, we
the
pay
account holder,
350 over there.
the account holder
You're the mayor of the
Would
city, not
pay.
county judge.
would pay the individual, and then they'd have to be reimbursed by the other 2. That we couldn't do payroll deduct because it's not
On all
being
3
paid
of
to
them.
the city
Yeah.
for utilities. But we do payroll deduct for everyone. That's the requirement of the lease is payroll deduct. They have no option.
So 2 would pay their lease, the payroll deduction. One would pay his part, the $200, $300, whatever, and then the utilities would give that one person's pay. And then he has to get his money from the other 2.
Exactly. So, but if you do that, you're putting the onus on the individual.
Good God, that could be a nightmare.
Well, to collect, and we as the city, as the landlord, as the employer, would not get involved in that. If my roommates aren't paying me, if he comes to HR, there's nothing we really can do. Because it's, he's the named account holder, he has the liability to pay that bill.
Okay, what would be an average on a plate of 3 people? Of utilities?
Yeah, $60 is the average for all the utilities per occupant. That's 30 people combined over there. That's everybody regardless of age and association. The tenants, there's 15 tenants. 15 people signed leases regardless of where they are, unfortunately. But overall there are 30 people. So that's where the $60 on average for the water, sewer, trash, utilities comes in at. That's taking that total average of 30 people.
So when we go pay utility, there's still no money for the city in it, right?
The family that's in there that has a spouse and 2 kids?
There's one with 2 kids, there's one with 1, there's 4 children, there's all different kinds of makeups.
Okay, so is it 60 each or 60
Per occupant, yes, when we're talking an occupant rate, it's $60 per human being.
Okay.
And that's based on 30 people total combined out of the 12 trailers, first flight separate.
So she pays $240 for utilities?
They're not
No,
paying
they're not
anything
paying,
for
okay.
utility, but
Right.
it would be an additional
That's-
$240 if you based it off of the $60 occupant rate.
Yeah.
They would have to be married into the monthly rate, adjusted up on the utility usage.
So they would be
So-
paying 7, 8, 9, 940, correct?
For that, for if you're basing it off of 700 and you're including utilities, you would just need to identify how you're gonna calculate utility, if there's gonna be a cap, if there's 6 kids, then are you going to per tenant or per occupant? Or is it a per tenant rate plus an additional fee per occupant? How you're going to calculate that. But again, it has to be consistent. So it would not, it would be across the board.
But in the event where there's one tenant for the house,
Yes.
wouldn't it be easier for them to just get the utility in their name and don't have to worry about the cost per tenant?
Probably not because of the accuracy we have with billing. So looking at what we have for drawn, there's one person who had $500 incurred in December while the others were down. And there's one that's up November while the others are down.
But
And
as
it's
long as
not
we're reading the
consistent.
meter, we have accurate information in which to generate the bill.
So the issue comes into play, as Kristen mentioned, when you have it per tenant, we
Right.
have an agreement with the tenant.
Agreed.
The meters are by physical locations. So in the instances where
Where
there's
there's one
one
tenant.
tenant and one meter, it's
That
not an
works.
issue.
It's the
But
multiple
you
tenants.
cannot
Yeah.
treat
Agreed.
tenants differently based on whether or not they're occupying a house by themselves or with multiple tenants.
Right. And while you can require the one named tenant to have the accounts, again, the issue is what happens if that employee doesn't want to pay his roommate?
So what's going on over there with the meter that it's not reading correctly, or what's going on?
No, they're
It's not an
reading
issue that it's not reading, you have variations in use.
because one has 3, one has
So-
2, or
Okay, so,
the usage
I mean,
fluctuates.
So,
why would,
ahead.
I'm sorry, and this is not at all to put down any employee, but why should we treat the employee different from the citizen who pays per use? I get what you're saying.
Well, and it is, honestly, this type of arrangement is part of compensation.
Okay.
So if you weren't being charged anything, like we have in the situation of one employee, that is compensated into her W-2 at the end of the year. At least it will be, because we are required by law.
Earned-
I don't know if
earned
it's,
income.
yeah, it's imputed income, it goes calculated into the W-2. So because we have leases, we avoid imputed income. So it does become an issue that it's part of the compensation.
You asked how we got into this dilemma? You asked how we got into
No,
this?
I understand it because we needed staff, we needed people.
We needed staff,
that
we had no
understand.
housing.
And no housing.
So we had to turn into landlords like that.
And everybody
overnight.
did it, the county did it,
Sure.
I mean, the
It
school did it.
was all
so
mutuals.
everybody do it, and everybody all over the state of Texas was doing it, and
So-
I understand that.
Some of these go back
I'm
a few
just
years.
trying
It's
to figure out how you're going to average bill where people, you pay this, you pay, well, the water's in my name, so you can't use the water, it's in my name. Cause you're not gonna pay me,
Yeah.
or, you know what, I put the water in my name, you two pay for it, cause it's in my name. So, you know, the best way to solve anything is say, one trailer, one house, one rent, one utility, you pay it all, and don't mix anybody in there.
And
That's the only way you're gonna get an agreement on anybody, because again, you go the other way, the person may get screwed out of money because nobody wants to pay him because he put it in his name.
Or we can do it this way, if you're gonna have multiple tenants, raise the rent, pay the utility, the city pays the utility, but raise the rent to compensate for the,
And that's what I was trying to get at, get an average of what the usage is.
Yeah.
And add it to, instead of.
But then-
that way when it comes out of their,
Utilities,
out of their paycheck,
you just raise it.
part of the utilities paid by each tenant.
But then we run into the same thing she said, if we're gonna do that, we have to do it that way for everybody that lives in
Well,
town.
one thing, that's kinda unique when you have 3 tenants instead of having a family.
But I will
And
say
that's what
that,
you're saying.
out of all the housing that we have, we only have those 2 situations.
No, we have other employees,
The other.
Multiple.
in the duplexes, yes,
But
that
they
have
would-
that situation.
Do they pay their own utilities over there?
Not all of them.
Okay.
Some do and some don't, because it's only been in the past 1 to 2 years we've added a lot of housing at once. Previously, we've had some housing in place that has just kind of carried over because we had housing that the city purchased for EMTs. And the EMTs aren't, as part of the, I guess, the contract, I don't know, I haven't seen that contract. Part of that, they're not charged water sewer. First Flight is over there as part of their contract, they're not charged water sewer. So we just need a consistent way to address it.
Yeah.
Bring
And
it
there
back.
isn't really.
Bring it back.
Valerie, you know what I'm saying?
Huh?
Valerie, she's still there?
Valerie, you
Have
still
any
there?
input?
Yes, I'm here. I think, my opinion is the rent is already well below market value in town. You're not gonna find rent for $500, $600, $700. I feel that everybody should be responsible for their utilities. You've got 1-bedroom duplexes that are renting for $1,200 to $1,400, and they still have to pay water. So I feel that everybody needs to pay the utilities.
Thank you.
I know what you say about it's gotta be fair and equitable. It's gonna be hard to get at because there's different variations of people's in there, and of course, one account per person only.
And we also, there are issues of turnover. We do have employees that leave city housing and then, you know, depending upon what comes up and how it comes up, depends on who the next tenants are gonna be in there.
You mentioned that's part of the compensation, but it also comes up under W-2 form.
Mm-hmm.
If they're renting and they're paying, it does not, because they are renting and they're paying something towards it.
Oh, I see, okay.
But if they are not, then it is part of compensation. So with
Yeah.
2 units, that would be charged some type of compensation,
I see.
either if it's rent or rent and utilities. But at the very least, the 2 units would be charged at least rent or partial amount of rent. And then based on what's decided for utilities.
But they have a
And correct me
company.
if I'm wrong, but those are gonna be electric department heads, correct?
No, that's
No?
just Seth and Lisa.
Okay.
Why don't we bring this back,
Yeah.
table it, let's bring it back with a little more information and maybe a little more thinking on our part to help you guys
Come
out.
on, kids.
I think
You're looking at it, I
the
will
issue,
say,
the issue way
it's
you're gonna
not-
settle anything is
It's not a bad
throw
thing.
everybody
David.
out and have one person live in one trailer and he pays everything.
It's not a bad thing, though. These are kind of things that if something like COVID doesn't happen, we're not aware of, okay? Because we trust our city employees to do the job, okay? We trust them to do the job for us, and, you know, we believe in them, so we allow them to make those choices. So if COVID didn't happen, we wouldn't be getting into
We would
this.
be
But
right
now
in
that
this.
we're COVID, we have to see what we have to do. That's all that it comes down to. Okay? Doesn't mean that it's gonna be like that forever. It can change 2 years from now or
And
whatever.
next year. No?
You know? But for the time being, we have to do something.
your per unit average is between the 125 to the 200, but that again is based on how many tenants and occupants are in each. That's where that 30 number comes in, and that flat number.
I mean, I understand, like you're saying as well, because you look, Mr. Perez said, we became landlord. Well, there's laws now that you have to fall under when you became a landlord, you know? And you don't wanna make one seem like you're charging him because of something different where he can say, well, why that one person, this one paying that, and I'm paying this, and so, you know, it's different areas that you look at as well, because now that you landlord, you have to follow the law.
And she's brought up a good point, which is that now that she started looking into it and actually started the process, everybody should have a lease.
They do.
So,
They do.
They
That was
do.
the first thing I did. That's
They-
what this is.
good.
Everybody has a lease, absolutely. We drafted leases, as soon as we got all the trailers and all the other housing set up. And anyone who was in existing housing already also converted to lease. So everybody
table this?
who is, who pays for housing has a month-to-month lease.
So we're gonna table it?
Mayor, make a motion that we table this item so we get more information, we come up with more brilliant ideas.
Alright, so we have a motion by Councilman Arroyo, second by Councilwoman Baca.
Thank you,
Go ahead and
Kristen.
table
Thank you.
number 5. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
Aye.
same sign. Motion carried. I only heard that aye. Okay, number 7, discuss consider resolution 20-06-09R, approving the issuance of sewer fee refunds. Mr. Linsby, here we go.
Mayor, Council, Howdy Listenby, Assistant City Manager. As y'all are very much aware, we've been talking about sewer fees and sewer charges and how it's calculated for a number of months now. But when you make a change in the method of calculation like we did in January, from a winter average process to a total consumption process, at the time we made the calculation change, we didn't adjust the rate that is charged per 1,000 gallons. And so this has resulted in some major increases in sewer bills for customers. So we went in and did an evaluation of the entire residential customer base to determine how many people were negatively impacted by that move. Works out to be about 10% of our customers were impacted. Here's how we know. If you stay within your winter average, your sewer charge would not have changed. And so there are a lot of our residential customers that use the same water in the winter as they use in the spring, as they use in the summer, and their water doesn't move, so their bill doesn't move a lot either. But from January through May, we looked at how many customers, their water consumption went up as we moved into spring, and those are the ones that started seeing the really high bills. And so figuring out which customers were impacted, and then going in and doing an assessment of how much were they impacted. And so I want to make sure and mention Nathaniel Sandoval in our finance department. He and I worked together to look at all these accounts and figure out how many were impacted and by how much they were impacted. And that leads us to the resolution that we bring to you tonight. And so it looks like we're going to have about 330 to 340 customers that were identified as having been impacted. And the total is, I wrote it down and then left it on my desk, it's around $35,000 to $40,000 is the amount that will be refunded back to customers depending on every individual account analysis. And so what this does is it basically establishes the parameters we will use to issue the refund. And the main point of that is on the resolution section number 2, only those customers that increase their water consumption by over 10,000 gallons above their winter average will be entitled to this one-time refund. Because there are going to be customers that their consumption went up by 1,000 gallons, their bill didn't hardly move at all. And so we're trying to figure out, it's like holding a tournament. You have 20 teams in the league and you decide you're going to have a playoff tournament and you pick 4 teams. Well, the team that came in 5th is going to be upset that they didn't make the tournament. You've got to draw the line somewhere. And so looking at what is a significant impact to your bill, if your consumption went up by 10,000 gallons in a month or more, that suddenly becomes a pretty significant billing issue. And so that's where we drew the line, is if your consumption went up less than 10,000 gallons, it's really not a major impact to your bill. But if it was 10,000, we've had some of them that they increased by 30,000 gallons in a month. It's a huge impact to their bill. And so we're just asking for authorization to go into these accounts and do refunds for those 2 months that were impacted.
Refunds or credit?
Same thing. Most of these people have paid the bill, and we're going to refund it back to the account as a credit. We're not going to be cutting checks. We'll be a credit back on the account.
And the total impact is $45,271.98.
Wow, that's a big number.
Could have been a whole lot worse.
Mhm.
Yeah. Did you have anything to add?
No, I just want to let council know that the timeline for actually issuing these credits will be into August. We will start them in about a week and a half. So people will see them, and we ask for folks' patience, but this is a manual process. And we have enough complications in the utility billing system that we don't want to do this in a rush. We want to make sure we do it correctly. So we want people to be mindful that this does take time. We totally understand it and we appreciate it and we'll move as fast as we can, but we don't want to screw it up.
And there's not a button we can push to make all this happen.
So if I had a bill and I kind of figured, okay, this is kind of lopsided, I can call the city and say, and could somebody tell me that, hey, don't pay your bill this month, they're working, yours is one of the ones that is there a red flag that you can pop up in the account and say this is red flag?
Well, the accounts that have already been identified, we've got 330 to 340 accounts that have already been identified. We're going to automatically go into their accounts and start applying credits. But there may be some that fell through the cracks. I talked to one today that when I ran the report, their consumption went up by 9,000 gallons, not 10,000 gallons, and so, but I looked it up. Well, the next month after I ran the report, it was up by 20,000 gallons. And so they have an issue that just wasn't when I ran the report. So there will be a handful of customers that will come in and ask, hey, do I qualify? That's when we look at the consumption, and if it increased by more than 10,000 gallons, we'll check it out and see if they qualify.
That's what I mean, because I want the public to know that if they think, just like if they think they have COVID, go have yourself checked. You think this was an error? Come and talk to somebody here. That's the thing, that they're calling us, and that's what we're telling them. You know, I don't know if any of the calls, but.
Call customer service.
Yeah, I call customer service.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Asking
I've got a bunch of phone calls.
is please don't call tomorrow we won't have it adjusted.
No.
If you could wait until the beginning of August.
8 o'clock tomorrow morning?
Just not. There's not enough chocolate and caffeine to make that a palatable conversation.
Go on
We-
vacation or what? No, I'm just kidding.
So, give us a time frame, like next week, Monday next week?
I would
Tuesday?
ask that they wait actually through July, because it is not, we don't, it's kind of like with the stimulus check. You knew it wasn't gonna show up for 4 to 6 weeks. This is a similar time frame. It is completely a manual entry in which every single account has to be reconciled. We hope that it will be much faster than that. But I would ask that they just exercise a little patience. Let's get through July. If it's not in there, please call.
At
But
least wait
let's
for the
get-
next bill. Give us some time.
Give us
to
some
get
time.
through
We
this.
cannot promise it in the next
It's like,
2 weeks.
I got mine already, it was, normally mine had been averaging 78 even when I was, my son and my wife, when I got remarried and my son was living there, still 78, 79. I know, 2 weeks ago I left the water on front, I planted seeds, so pretty much all morning I knew it's still gonna be high, but nothing went into the sewer.
Right.
The grass, but other people have bigger problems.
So
Well-
the July bills will come down because the new rates are in place. We've had a couple of small glitches that we're working with the programmer to fix. But otherwise, Emma Alvarez and her staff have been working to manually correct those for people who had septic, for example.
No,
But-
one thing I did get from somebody calling me, or not calling me, getting me in person, was they called, they didn't wanna give me the person's name, they said, no, I don't wanna get the lady in trouble, or whoever they called. They just were pretty rude, they said, that's what you owe, come and pay it now, or we'll pay it off. So, I've heard those similar instances a couple of times.
That's not how we train our customer service
Yeah.
reps, and so we'll check into that.
Yeah, just, like I said, yeah, and it could be, somebody had, a long, hard day of dealing with customers, that it came out at the wrong person, so, and I'm not saying that the other didn't, but it's a possibility.
On that note, Joe, I do have a question about that. You're having to pay your water bill at the municipal court. Do we have somebody from the water department taking care of it over there, or is, okay. So they know, if they get a phone call, they know what they're talking about over here, okay.
Yes, yes.
There's always one person in municipal court taking utility payments and one person taking court payments. When it's busy, we have 2, if not 3. In addition, we have about 4 people who back up to take payments over the phone. What we are discussing is the possibility of putting back in the phone menu so people can go directly to the utility billing and to finance rather than get bumped around, because that would streamline it for the customer, so we're also discussing that.
One of the questions that I've been asked a couple of times through this process also is, why did we do this in the first place? And it's usually the people that saw the high bill want to know, why did we make this change at all? Well, in the same way that they're getting impacted now, we had probably the same number of customers that were getting negatively impacted under the winter average scenario. And so I've talked to 2 or 3 of them in the past couple of weeks that 2 winters ago they had a really high consumption, and so it locked their average in at 10,000 or 15,000 gallons, and then that's what they paid for sewer every month for 12 months. Well, if they used 2,000 gallons in a month, their water bill was really, really low, but their sewer bill was still $80 or $90 because it was based on this average number.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were paying for sewer that they didn't use in that situation, and that's the risk of the winter average method, is you end up with customers paying for stuff that, and their consumption is not even that high. And so if you do winter average, there are going to be people that are impacted. If you do total consumption, there's going to be people that are impacted. But under total consumption, at least we stop making guesses. We know how much water went through the meter, we're confident in that, and we can bill accordingly.
Do you feel like this is the best solution
I
to
do.
the refund?
In my professional opinion, I think this is the best way to go.
I was approached this afternoon by a citizen. He explained to me his water usage was 13,000 gallons, amounted to $51.10, and his sewer was almost $70. he asked me to explain. So that's why I'm here tonight,
Yes, sir.
looking for an explanation.
Okay. If that was in a winter average situation, when that, I don't know what month that was, but
From April to May.
okay. When the old rates, before we adopted the new rates to go into effect into June, then as your sewer charge, as the consumption went up, it cost you more. And so under the old rate structure, if we're doing total consumption but with the old rates, you'd end up with a situation where your sewer was significantly higher than your water. And that's lopsided, and most people don't understand the logic. I don't understand the logic either. That's why we're going back and trying to adjust these accounts for those couple of months in the spring where people were negatively impacted.
I think he told me he met with you yesterday. I'm pretty sure you know what it is.
I talked with a gentleman on the phone today that was complaining about his sewer charge for this month, and when I looked it up, he's paying less now than he did last winter because his average was set real high, and so he actually came out ahead. Right?
Okay, so, I need a motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve, resolution 20-06-09R, approving the issuance of sewer fee refunds as presented by Assistant City Manager, Mr. Harry Leeson.
Need a second?
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Saldana, second by Councilman Orona, to approve resolution 20-06-09R, approving the issuance of sewer fee refunds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, number 8, discuss, consider resolution 20-06-10R, reimbursement resolution for WWTP design. Mr. Lipsky.
Mayor, Council, howdy, listen to you again, Assistant City Manager. I want to talk about these next two items at the same time, then we'll take action in the order that they show up on the page. And I have a brief just presentation with some pictures because sometimes it's easier to see and understand what's going on. And some of the dollar figures that we're going to be talking about are large, big expenditures, and so I want to make sure we understand the scope of what we're talking about. And so, at our current wastewater treatment plant located out off of Colley Road, we have a lagoon treatment system at this point in time. That's the technology that we use. And so, wastewater and sewage flows in through a structure, I've got pictures of it in just a second, and feeds into this lagoon system, which is a biologic process. There's bacteria that's in this water. We want it to be there because the bacteria in that process will begin to eat the solids, if you will, and clean out the water. And so, John, you can come in if you want to. And so all of the treatment activity happens in these ponds, and then when we're finished with the water, if you will, it then flows over into these storage tanks. And so the finished water resides here. Now, with this biologic process, there's only a certain level of quality water that you are able to produce through this biologic process alone. And so some of the studies, some of the stuff that we're going to be looking at is adding to or changing the treatment process so that we produce a higher quality water when we're finished with it. And that's going to become an important point in just a little bit. The other issue in play is when we permitted this plant, the state of Texas gives you a volume of water that you're rated for, and we've talked about this. And so 1.6 million gallons a day is what we're permitted as an average to treat through this process. And when you reach 70% of that, you've got to start planning for how you're going to expand your plant. When you hit 90% of that permitted amount, you better be under construction as far as the state's concerned. Well, we're above 90% capacity. In some months, we actually exceed the rated capacity because of how the community has grown so fast. So we have to improve the quantity of water that we can treat, and we have to improve the quality of water that comes out the backside of the plant. And those are the two objectives that we have to overcome right now, is the quantity of the water coming in and the quality of the water that's coming out. And so we've talked several times about a $40 to $50 million treatment plant that we're going to the state to get some funding assistance with. And in August, the board meets. All indications are they're going to approve our application. It's a formality at this point based on what we've been told. But that's a $40 or $50 million project that is shocking. That's a huge price tag for whatever you're going to do. And so that would take this treatment process and completely change from a pond system to a filtration and clarification system. It's called membrane bioreactors. And it's a different technology and a different process. And so that plant, let's say 3 years from now, will be rated for about 3.5 million gallons a day and will produce a much higher quality of water out of the backside. The problem is, we have to operate this plant for the next 3 years. And so we can't leave it the way it is for the next 3 years and just wait until that point in the future to fix all of our problems. We have to at least address the quantity problem right now. And so the issue in front of you today is what we're calling this interim wastewater treatment plant improvements. And so we'll talk through what that means, but it's what improvements can we make to the plant right now for the next 3 years so that we don't spill over the side of the banks of our plant. We have to treat this sewer for the next 3 years before our new plant is constructed. So that's the interim nature. Now, some of these improvements are going to be used in the new plant, so we're not throwing money away, but we have to make some changes to how we treat it now. So as the process flows right now, sewage comes into this screening facility, and it's a really beautiful photograph. If you want to come up later and look more closely, you can. But this is the pit where all of the wastewater comes in. Every drop, every solid, every toy, every piece of plastic, everything that comes in the sewer ends up here in this pit. And there is a mechanical screen that is supposed to be functioning right here to pull out the plastic and the toys and all the stuff that comes in. That screen is not working and is in a significant state of disrepair. That's why you see all of this stuff on top of the water right there. And so it should screen up through this and dump out into a waste trailer so that those plastics and papers and the solids that we can pull out, we should be removing it at this structure, and that structure is currently not working. And it's been, from what I can tell, a long time since it has worked correctly. So the interim improvements, first and foremost, is going to be fix this problem, because we can't treat the water as it should be if some of this mess is getting through this and getting into those ponds. And so part of the interim improvements is to fix this, and that fix will be something that we can benefit from now on. The other issue is, it's a quantity issue of how much water is coming in. So as it stands right now, wastewater flows into the plant here on Colley Road, and we have 2 ways under our permit that we can get rid of the water right now. One is just evaporation. Put it in the pond and just let the good old West Texas sun and heat do what it does and evaporate it off the top. That works if the quantity of water coming in is lower than the permitted capacity of the plant. But right now we have more water coming in than we can evaporate off. And so the second way we can get rid of that water is an agricultural application. And so we have some landowners around the plant that have an agreement with us to take that water for agricultural purposes. They can irrigate this area with that water. And so they take water as they need it and apply it to this large tract of land for their agricultural needs, and the rest we evaporate. A number of years ago, a couple of city managers ago, a pond was built down by the airport. When I got here, everyone called it the honey pond. because Mr. Honeyfield is the one that was involved with that. And so we have the ability to flow water from the finished water in these ponds. We can push it through a series of pumps and deposit it in this pond over by the airport. And that has saved our hide on many, many occasions, because without it, we don't have enough capacity to store all the water here. So we're using these ponds plus this one to store the quantity of water that's coming in and allow it to evaporate off. And then we've got some agricultural application here. So the interim improvements that we're working on is to add a couple of treatment processes to the plant, but also increase the capacity of water that we can deal with. And so that will allow us to continue to do agricultural irrigation, but also allow us to keep sending water over here. The challenge with water in this pond is the quality of that water does not meet state standards for it to be in a public space. The ponds here are in the plant, they're fenced off, they've got a lock on it. The public is not allowed into this pond whenever they want to. It's in a controlled space. This pond is open to the public. I've never seen anybody in the water, fortunately, but there's people walking around out there all the time. With the improvements we're doing to the interim plant, it will solve the quality issue so that this water meets the state standards to be here in a public space without access control. And so those are some of the things we've got to do with the interim improvements. The 3-year plant, long term, when we go to that solution, the water that's produced then can be used for irrigation. It can be used recreationally. You could fish out of it. There's lots of things. We could turn this into a fishing pond with the 3-year plant. We can't with the plant we have right now. And so there's some beneficial things that we can gain from this water that we're going to be producing every day, but we've got to improve the quality of that water to fully realize the benefits. But as it stands right now, the interim improvements will fix today's quantity issue, and it will improve the quality issue, but it won't get us all the way to the 3-year goal. And so that's the difference between the interim improvements and the final plant we hope to have constructed in the next 3 years. And so I conclude that with what's the cost of the interim improvements. And so working with the engineers as we have, we're estimating a $4 million budget for the interim improvements, and that will take the quantity from 1.6 million gallons a day to 2.5 million gallons a day. That solves the quantity of water that we're producing right now and buys us the time. If we continue to grow, within 3 years, 2.5 will not be enough. But if we stall out and stop growing, that 2.5 quantity issue could last us for the next 10, 15 years. So we could, in theory, spend $4 million on today's plant, solve the problem we have right now, and if growth in the community stalls, we don't have to do anything else to the plant, knock on wood, for another 10 to 15 years. But at the point we start growing again, we have to then look at the quality of water that comes out of the plant, and that would be the 3-year solution. So right now, I'm asking for $470,000 to finish the engineering for the design of the interim improvements. And so that's what we're talking about tonight. We've had several conversations about sewer, and it can get really confusing what we're talking about, because there's a $40 or $50 million number, here's a $4 million number, there's a $470,000 number. Where does it all fit in the big picture? And so $470,000 allows us to do the engineering and produce the interim improvements to today's plant to get us for the next 3 to 10 to 15 years. So that's what the $470,000 is that we're looking to do tonight. So item number 7, just when you thought I was going to shut up. How are we paying for this? With water from money from the Texas Water Development Board. Their Clean Water State Revolving Fund is a very low-cost financing program to fund sewer and wastewater projects. And so we'll be getting funding from the Water Development Board to pay for the construction of the interim plant and the design of the new plant that's 3 years from now. That money is probably going to be in our pockets in November or December. I can't wait until December to start designing these improvements. I have to start designing it today so that we can build it fast. And so the purpose of the reimbursement resolution that you see in front of you for item number 7, it's a technicality of state and federal law when you're doing financing for projects. If I want to spend money today, but I don't get the proceeds till in the future, if I don't do a reimbursement resolution, I can't pay myself back when that money comes in November or December. And so what we're saying is we have $470,000. We can start the engineering today and get it moving, and we can pay for it. But in November and December, when the funding comes in, we want to pay ourselves back so that we're not losing that cash. The only way that's an option is if we do a reimbursement resolution. And so item number 7 is me asking you to approve a reimbursement resolution that's satisfying the requirements of state and federal law, that we need to start spending money today. We're going to pay ourselves back at the end of the year with some of the proceeds from this financing solution with the state.
You keep saying number 7, but it's actually number 8.
I don't have it in front of me, so.
Well, it is kind of 7.
Yeah, 7 was the sewer fees, so you're right.
8 and 9, I'm sorry.
8 is the reimbursement resolution, and 9 is the contract for the $470,000. So, within the reimbursement resolution, there's an $11 million number that you'll see in there. And so, I've talked about $50 million, I've talked about $4 million, and I've talked about $470,000. What magic am I doing to come up with $11 million? Well, when you do a large construction project, you don't want to get all the cash up front, because then it's just sitting in the bank and you're paying interest on this cash and you're not even into construction yet. So $11 million will build this plant. It will pay for the design of this interim improvements, and it will do all of the engineering for the new plant we need 3 years from now. So that allows us to pay for the work we need done today and the engineering for the plant we need 3 years from now. And the beauty of that is when we finish that engineering, you're basically going to have a binder that you can stick on the shelf. And if this community stalls, we can stick that plant on the shelf and say, okay, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, we need to pull this off the shelf and build it. But if we wait until the community grows to then start the engineering, it's too late. So $11 million is the first draw on a $50 million funding application to the state. The other $39 million and change, we don't use that until the community grows enough that we're forced to build that new plant and start construction. So that's my confusing math magic.
So on item number 8 would be the $470,000 that you're requesting for reimbursement.
No, well, the reimbursement resolution is for the full $11 million, because that's how much we're going to get from the state in November or December. We're not going to spend $11 million, but if you're going to do one of these reimbursement resolutions, you might as well make it for the full amount that's coming in November, so that we've got plenty of options. All we're looking to spend right now is $470,000. But if I ask you for a reimbursement resolution for $470,000, and then 2 or 3 months from now I realize I got to do one more thing, well, then I got to come back and ask for another resolution. Okay. That's all.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
On that pit that you were showing, as once we start the engineering, start the construction, is it going to be done as the plant is in operation, or do you have a different way of? Because it looks like just one pit.
For this pit, it will be done while it's in operation. It's challenging, but it's doable. In a former life, I worked with a plant that did 22 million gallons a day, and we completely rebuilt that plant top to bottom while we were still treating that much every day. So there's ways to do it. You got to get creative, but it's possible.
So the water, the quality water that's being pumped into that's that new pond back there behind the golf course?
Yes, that's correct.
So that water can be used to irrigate the golf course too?
After these improvements, yes.
Okay.
Today,
Right now, it
no.
can't.
No.
We can get in trouble with the state on that, right? It's like,
Now, of course, you mentioned something about, now, this is, the treatment plant right now is fenced off for security. Honey hole is.
Correct.
Are we gonna secure the honey hole, or just go with what it is, leave it the way it is for right now?
The cost of securing the honey hole right now would be substantial. And so our best move is to improve the quality that we're producing as fast as we can.
Could we put signs around the honey hole?
We're looking at signs, just say no swimming, don't get in the water. We're gonna put up signs about that.
There's signs right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are some.
There are signs.
Okay.
No
Yeah.
fishing, no swimming, something else.
But ultimately, what I would like to do, and if you'll permit me to dream for just a minute, in 3 years, when we have the new plant constructed and online, we will be producing at least 2 million gallons a day of good quality water that can be beneficially reused by this community for irrigation projects along the interstate, for irrigation projects at the golf course and in our parks and recreation, and even could, if we see development and growth around the baseball complex, that water comes right through there on the way to the honey hole.
yeah.
So that water could be used for beneficial purposes, namely irrigation, anywhere along this route, because the water quality will be high enough. But think further than that, and this is where I start becoming a really big nerd. If Pecos continues to grow, right now we have the water resources to produce 6 to 8 million gallons a day. We've got enough water right now to grow and be okay. But once we hit 40,000 population or 35,000 population, it's starting to cross the line of whether we have enough water. So that's why the project in cooperation with the Madera Water Supply that we're working with right now brings a whole nother volume of water that can be used for drinking. But as it stands right now, we're using drinking water for irrigation. Well, if I can take the 2 to 3 million gallons a day that are produced by this plant, I can either use it for irrigation, or, this is where it gets crazy, you can build a water treatment plant that takes that water, blends it with the groundwater that's coming out of the ground, creates a quality water that then goes through a water treatment plant, and we've just increased the amount of water we have for the growth of our community substantially.
I think Midland does that, I know Midland does that.
Yeah, they redid their whole plant, Midland did. They redid their whole
And
plant.
so, what you do with the water that comes out of one of these plants is incredibly important. And many communities just let that water go. If you let it go, you'd never get it back. And so, please don't put it in the paper or tell anyone that I'm saying we're going to be drinking this water tomorrow. No, that is not what we're talking about. But 15, 20 years from now, you could have the population growth that is greater than the water we have available in the dirt right underneath us, and we have to find every drop of water. This move makes that a possibility 10, 20 years in the future.
But in 3 years, we could have a fishing pond.
We could, yes.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
See, there goes your fishing rod, bro.
Save that tackle box and you win it.
Yeah. And we could also sell that water to the oil field once it picks up.
That has already been available. We haven't had any takers. We can sell the water we produce right now. We just haven't had anybody interested because they're drilling their own wells and using the groundwater that's cheaper than what they can get this and haul it back.
You know, water's a commodity, just like oil nowadays.
Oh.
Good God.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so do you want separate motion on both, or do we motion on both?
Separate, we gotta take action on number 8 first, and then action on number 9 second.
May I make a motion that we approve resolution 20-06-010R reimburse resolution in the amount of $11 million for the wastewater treatment plant design as presented by Holly Leslie, Assistant City Manager.
Second?
Second.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so I have a motion by Councilman Orona, second by Councilman Saldana, to accept resolution 2020-06-10R as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Okay, and then again, I make a motion that we approve resolution 20-06-0-11R. A wastewater treatment plant design contract task order number 1 is presented by Holly Leslie, Assistant City Manager.
Second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Orona, second by Councilman Tellez, to approve resolution 20-06-11R as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 10, discuss consider resolution 20-06. Thank you, Mr. Mazumbi.
Thank you so much.
-12R, setting a proposed maximum tax rate for fiscal year 2020-2021, as said public hearing regarding the adoption thereof. Ms. Melanie?
Better up.
She's like, I'm done with y'all.
Since baseball's gonna be a short season. Another one, okay.
Down the hallway. Good evening, Melanie Purcell, Finance Director. The resolution before you regarding the property tax rate is designed to, we by law have to establish the proposed tax rate. This is the maximum that the city will be able to levy at any point forward for the remainder of the year to gain revenues, property tax revenues for FY 2021. The reason we have gone to the maximum here allowed by law, which is the 1.035 or 3.5% increase as allowed under SK2, is so that as the valuations are finalized, then we have room to bring it down. This is not what is to be levied. This is not the rate that we're saying should be levied to generate property taxes. We're saying this is the maximum allowed. Because of all the changes in timing, we don't have final valuations. So if we were to come back, if council said, you know what, we want to have a lower tax rate, we think it's only going to need to be 0.55 because we have a high valuation, and that valuation comes back finalized lower, that tax rate would have to be even lower than what you determined today. That's why the recommendation is to propose the maximum tax rate, and that's what this resolution does, in order for you to be able to levy a lower tax rate based on the final valuations. Thank you.
Motion approved.
So we're not setting it.
No.
No, ma'am. The setting of the rate is actually August 13th. They just, because of all
But
these
this gives
different
us
changes.
a range from what it's asking here as a max.
This is the
And
absolute
then
maximum.
according to evaluations, then we can lower it, but we can't go past that point.
So in looking at the budget, knowing that it's gonna be very tight, we still wanted to recognize, we're not recommending any increase. Staff has at no point discussed the idea of saying, hey, we need to increase it, even up to the maximum. But recognizing that fluctuation in valuations is still possible, because the deadline for that valuation to be finalized comes after today's meeting. And this has to be set at this time frame in order to have the 2 hearings, without holding special meetings. We have to set the hearings for next month.
So if it comes above 61 or 62 cents, rounded up.
Pardon?
If it comes above 62 cents per 100.
If it comes above that, it has to go to the voters automatically.
Yep.
If it's, yeah. It's automatic. So the recommendation, we know that what we'll be recommending to you for the final budget will be lower than this, but we know that, we don't know exactly what that is yet.
Good, no motion.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve resolution 20-06-12R, setting proposed maximum tax rate for fiscal year 2020-2021, and set public hearings regarding the adopted thereof, as presented by Dominic Purcell, Finance Director.
Can I get a second?
Second, Mayor.
I have a motion by Councilman Arona, second by Councilman Diaz to accept resolution 20-06-12R, setting the proposed max tax rate as presented by Mr. Purcell. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Mayor, if I can, just to let the public know, this is not setting a tax rate.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Number 11, discuss consider resolution 20-06-13R, accepting a bid for retrofitting water meter registers and purchase of new meters from Zaner and authorizing funds in the amount not to exceed $1 million. Robinson?
Mayor and Council, thank you very much. Seth Swenson, City Manager. This is a bid that we put out for a couple different reasons. As some of you may recall, it was not that long ago that the city went throughout the entire system and replaced water meters. I think it started around 2015. They were still wrapping it up when I got here in 2017. We already have some registers, and thanks to the Public Works for providing this. We already have some registers that are no longer reading. And so I'd like to show what we currently have on the ground.
Some water. All right. I thought I drained it all, but we'll let you a surprise.
All right, well, that's right. This is the register here on the top. Down on the bottom is a zero lead brass body. The body is where the water actually comes through, spins the ceramic magnet, goes out. The register follows that magnet, and that's based off of the calculations of the water going through. It calculates how much water you're using. So what we have here is the register. This is the part that we're having fail. And so it's not anything wrong with the meter itself, but we simply can't read it. And this is a good example because the clock is blanked out. This is one of our failed ones. What we have found, and you can actually see it, it'd be easier if you came up afterwards, they did not seal this. And so water intrusion is getting in through this area right here, which is causing these to fail. This company, for all practical purposes, is no longer with us. They are bankrupt.
I wonder why.
We can go into that if you really want to. But the bottom line is, and actually you can see it in here. You can see the water floating around in here. It's not supposed to be doing that. Okay, so this is one of our failed ones. We had put out this bid, and we actually had specified, thank you, Master Meter meters. Master Meter is a brand that we're familiar with. Talking about previous slides, I've done 3 water meter projects now. If approved, this will be my 4th. So I'm familiar with Master Meter. Unfortunately, Master Meter did not meet the deadline for submitting a bid proposal. And so we had 3 companies that did submit. And I'm going to have to help you. We had Camstruck, we had Ferguson, and we had Zinner. 2 of those 3, namely Ferguson and Camstruck, did not have the type of meters that were specified. There's several different technologies out there for water meters. Ferguson submitted for what's called a nutating disc, which means you have this very small disc that has these little fins on it, and it's just precariously balanced there. And as it spins, it does the same thing as the ceramic magnet. But the problem that we have here is that even though our best intentions of keeping it out of the system is we're groundwater, and when you pull groundwater out of the ground, sand comes with it. We've also got a little bit of sand here. That sand just demolishes those nutating discs. It goes through there, and it doesn't take much. The speeds that are going through there, it hits it, It either makes it wobbly or it disintegrates them. And so we would really recommend not going with Ferguson, despite, in addition to the fact that they were one of the higher costs. Camstruck actually submits a high density polymer, a plastic meter. And an argument could be made with the high alkali that we have in our soils here that a plastic meter would last longer. Again, if they're kind of the only ones out there that are doing this entire body meter. AWWA calls for brass bodies for a reason, because they last. And to get the 20 years that you would hope to get out of a meter, it's an unproven technology. And so with that being said, again, sand through high density polymer, it's still going to hit it, it's still going to have its effect. Again, they were one of the higher quotes that we received. Zenner was the only one that came in with an equivalent meter. They actually sell every kind of meter there is, which I did not know, because I was not familiar with Zenner. They came in, said, we can supply you with whatever you want. We can supply you with what you have now, we can supply you with whatever you would like. We asked them in for an interview to follow up, because their pricing came in at almost half of what everyone else was charging. And so that kind of, yours kind of perked up to find out, okay, how is it that they're able to do this? And we spent a good 2 hours with them, grilling them over their system. One of the reasons that they're able to do it cheaper is because they own their own manufacturing. They're also able to do it cheaper because they're one of the largest water meter companies in the world, which I did not know. Zenner USA, which is the U.S. portion of that, has only been here for around the last decade, but they've been around the world going back to 1913, I think, going back more than 100 years. And so as a company, they're very solid. They've got the history around meters. They're also the largest water meter provider for U.S. bases throughout the world, military bases. And so they do have quite the track record. On top of the fact that their meters ended up being that much cheaper, in working with them and reading through their proposal, we found out that they can come in and they can make a register to retrofit what we have in the ground, saving us even more money. And so we asked them to rework their bid based off of, instead of the idea of replacing all of the meters in the ground, and again, there's nothing wrong with the brass. The brass is in good shape, it's still flowing. We were able to go back and ask that, basically flip the numbers, where instead of replacing all of the meters, we're just going to replace the ones that we've been replacing here and there, and then just replace the registers for the rest. We were able to bring it down about another $180,000 beyond what they had originally bid by doing that switch. If that wasn't good enough, their price also includes the installation, which is much better. We were anticipating having to do this in 2 phases to cut down on overhead. One was to bid out for the meters themselves, and the second was going to be a installation. There's companies out there that just do the installation. For the retrofits themselves, included in their price is for them to come out and put one of these on there and go throughout the system. Now what you'll see in your packets are actually 2 different prices. The first price, which is around $520,000, is the meters and the registers themselves, the replacement registers. The second half of that, which is around $200,000 in round numbers, is for them to actually come in and install them, fix any lids. So part of the problem that Tesla, RG3, red Tesla.
Yeah.
One of the problems that RG3 had, they had actually sold us an AMI system, an automatic metering infrastructure system. And with an AMI system, what you're supposed to be able to do is sit in the office and the information comes to you. You're not supposed to be driving out and doing it. Needless to say, their technology did not work, because even after we went back and forth with them several times, the best that they could do for us was a drive-by system, usually called an AMR system, where you drive around in your pickup truck, there's a radio, and you pick them up. So that's what we're doing right now, is a drive-by system. Zenner, for a very small difference in price, on the range of like $20,000 to $50,000, is going to be able to get us an AMI system. And so that our meter techs are really only doing technician work instead of being meter readers every month. The big question in that second number is, what are they going to have to do to our lids? A lot of our pits, our meter pits, are metal. And RG3, when they came in, cut holes in them, or at least attempted to cut holes in them with torches, and quite frankly, some of the holes were just enough to get by. Some of them look more like crescents. And so some of the variable cost that we're requesting to cover in the contract with Center is, if they can't fix the lids, that we go ahead and buy a polymer lid that already has a hole in it for the radio, and we just get this system working. Along those lines, the president of the company, Richard, getting his last name. Anyways, it's Richard. He's actually the one that came out and presented to us, and he is willing to not require any payments up front. Usually they want a deposit to deliver meters and have it sit. He is willing to wait until we have this entire project up and running and have accepted it before they will request payment. They're that confident in their product that they're willing to come out, install it, troubleshoot it. If they require more repeaters or more infrastructure in order to make it work, that's on them. And so it's kind of like the gross maximum price that we're doing with the baseball complex. If it runs over what they told us is going to be the price, they eat it. So not only are they willing to do that, but they are willing to come out and wait for payment until the system is running the way it's supposed to be running. The long and short of this is, this has been a process because it was an alternative bid. We do feel that it is the responsible thing to do, to use the infrastructure that we already have. One, because it's a lower cost to the city, which means it's a lower cost to our customers. Two, the time of installation is cut in half. To take this off and put a new one on, and to do the entire system is going to be about 4 months, as compared to the 8 to 12 months that it would take to do a meter project. And again, if you remember back to our previous experience, it took them closer to 2 years to get that many meters in the ground. And so the ability to turn around quickly, start getting accurate reads, because we can actually read how much is going through there. I do feel that this is the best opportunity that we have to do this for the lowest dollar amount. We did reach out to references. They were all positive. One especially was in Wink, where they went in, and Wink as well was using RG3 meters, and they did exactly what we're proposing to do, all the way up to the AMI system. So they're getting reads all the way back to their city hall. all of them that we talked to had the same comment, and it's the same comment I would make about every meter project that I've been involved in, is that it takes a little while to get the kinks worked out. It's not, you just plug it in and you're ready to go. But they all said Zenner stuck with them to get those kinks out. They stuck with them to make the system work. In Wink, you know, they've got quite a bit fewer meters than we've got. And it took Zenner about 4 times as long as they were originally anticipating. But they stayed, they didn't charge anything extra, and they made it work. And so I would recommend approving this contract with Zenner. It is an alternative bid, but we find that they're responsible, they're capable of doing it, and for the price, the cost savings, we do think that this is the best solution moving forward.
Too good to be true.
Well, you know, we had that exact same question, which is why we felt that exact same way, which is why we called them in, and we wanted them to tell us how they were going to make it happen, with the guarantee that we won't pay until it is up and running. That introduces a whole lot of peace of mind.
So, I have to ask that, like, okay, when we did the RG3 meters, were we needing new meters at that time, or was it just because of the new system, we were just like, oh my god, let's do it?
No, it was before my time. I was here on the tail end
Before
of it.
mine too.
Yeah, meters wear out. They do. Even these, as sturdy as they are, after 20 years, they start to become less accurate. Batteries, being what they are, the technology is so much better than what it used to be, but batteries still are the biggest problem. And so we were in need of a meter overhaul. There's no doubt about that. Hindsight being what it is, RG3 at that time was a brand new company. They did not have the track record of a company like Master Meter or Zenner or Ferguson, you know, Badger, Census, in any of your major products. They were a new company, and I don't want to say that we got took, but we bought into what they were selling us, and it's had problems. Again, it's not a matter of whether or not we're billing accurately. When we pull those meters and when we test them, what's going through there is accurate. It has to do with this guy right here that keeps breaking down on us. When I got here again, they came in and they replaced about 1,000 registers at that time. Since then, we've had about another 800 that are down.
And we're actually dealing with Zenner, not like an independent sales.
Correct. They are the company that comes out with the sales, with the product, the manufacturing. We have the president of the company here talking to us. One of the references that we spoke to says that one of their sales reps, reaches out to them probably at least twice a month just to make sure everything's going all right, you know, and following up for customer service.
Now, if we install these meters, what's the expectation of their life expectancy?
So again, a lot of it comes down to battery. I believe they have a 10+10 warranty, which means anything within the first 10 years, they would replace. We send it into them, they send us a new one. The second 10 years is on a prorated basis, and I think it goes down 10% every year. And so if we get year 19 out of 20 years, we're going to pay 90% of that, and they're going to cover the other 10%. And so that's kind of the standard for the industry, for anyone who's actually able to stand behind their product.
And I guess I have to ask, the same way when we put the RG3 meters in, you know, everybody's bills were up and down until we were able to, I guess, establish. We put in these new meters around this time. We're giving everybody a refund for, you know, what change we made in January. Do you see anything like that happening with new meters? That people are gonna say, well, yeah, put these new meters in and, you know, now it's worse.
I laugh because
Because it's true.
Electric meters. Back in the day, we would test meters. Somebody would say, hey, my meter's not working right. Well, you put their meter in a brand new meter, and then you watch the usage and how they go, right? Or other people say, I want a new meter. Well, careful, because meters tend to slow down as they get old.
Yeah.
You get a brand new meter, it's going to be accurate, almost to 100%. So your bill is going to go. It's going to reflect the actual usage. So
I would say the only difference here is that for most of these meters, this brass is still fairly new, and the mechanics in here, there's nothing wrong with them. So I would say that the meter before this one was old and had slowed down. This one sped up because the mechanics worked. And if we just take one register off and put it in, the mechanics inside the brass don't change.
So the bill shouldn't change.
I wouldn't expect a major spike like when you completely replace the brass.
Yeah.
But there's always going to be outliers and exceptions.
Oh, yeah.
The known customer base that we're going to impact are the roughly 900 meters that we have out there that we're either manually reading because the radio, the connection here up through the lid is either no longer working, which means that we have to go back to the old method of kneeling down, popping the lid, looking in there, trying to get a read, getting all the dirt off so you can read the numbers correctly. Those are going to be impacted, and those that have a blank register, because we've got, either we don't know that it's blank or we're having to estimate based off of previous usage. And so we know that that's not the way you do it. We had a discussion just tonight about how do we equitably, monitor utilities. Well, you do it by having a working meter. And so that's what we're trying to get to. And we're trying to streamline it for our crews so that they're not out there reading 800 meters every month. That's ridiculous. For the customer, it also improves it because then we're actually able to get the data that we need to help them find the problems that they're having in their system. That's something that we just don't have now because of the faulty workmanship.
And you mentioned master meters. Do we know if they were going to be able to do the same thing as Zenner would have done, or we would have to get a new register and meter for those?
So for master meter, it would have been a complete replacement, which is what we had originally bid, because we weren't aware that there was anyone that was able to retrofit. And so we would be putting the brand new bodies and registers in the ground all over again. We did receive a bid from Master Meter, but it was after the deadline, and their price was comparable to Ferguson, and they were twice as expensive. Camstrom, twice as expensive as what we're proposing here. They're good meters. They're great meters. I trust that company because they've proven to be a good company. But they missed the deadline, and we either have to throw out all the bids and start over, or they're just out of luck.
Do we have the money?
We do have the money. It was budgeted for this year. It is coming from utility funds, which is a separate entity. It's an enterprise fund, which means people are paying their water bills and their sewer bills, whether they like it or not, and that goes back into the system. And so we do have the reserves for this. It was budgeted in this year to do meter replacement. I believe we actually budgeted $2.5 million because we were anticipating having to do the install on top of that, which worked out about right. Or I guess was pretty good there. But we have the money set aside, and this is going to be the quickest way to do this.
When we first went to this type of meter, it's been a while, but we were losing a lot of water through the old meters. And they told us, you lose a lot of water. The only way you can salvage that or just charge the customer what they're using is with this new type of meter. and it worked out. But for so many years, we were used to paying almost nothing for water. People let the water run down the streets, do whatever, until we applied for a water development loan back for a new water field. And the first thing they told us is, you need to raise your water rates. We won't lend you the money because you can't pay for it. You can't pay for the loan. So we had to raise our water rates. Well, of course, we heard it from the public, but it was a necessity. We were basically giving water away, I guess, when I first came in. So we were used to real cheap water rates. Not anymore.
And I do have one more question. If when they install these, let's just say, for some reason we did not like it after all, is there anything that Zenner guarantees if we don't like it, we don't pay for it at all, or,
Define, we don't like it.
It doesn't work the way we wanted it to work.
If it doesn't work, then we're not paying. We'll have to then go back to where we're at now, which means an entire body replacement, start to finish, and we'll be back in that $2.5 million range.
It'll cost more.
It will. And we had anticipated that. We had budgeted according to what we.
But right now with this matter, we're saving money.
We're not spending money.
Yes, that's it. Good phrase.
And Jose, I know you mentioned something about the dial that was different, that it would help.
I'll pass this one around because this one's clean. This one has a rotary analog, an analog, thank you, whereas this one is electronic.
Okay, when we went to TML, some of them would send a signal that you had a leak.
Thus we'll do that.
Yes, we'll do this, yeah. This little star, when I would, once in a month, in the old way, once a month I'd pick up the lid and see that thing was turning when I knew everything was off.
Yeah.
I do it twice a day now.
Yeah.
I do it twice a day now.
Well, you know, it's just a guarantee that they're willing to give us, you know, to install them and then not pay until. A lot of companies don't do that stuff.
I know.
Nobody
They
does
have a lot of willingness,
But you know, there's companies, we've dealt with companies in the business that I'm in that just to get our business, but they're comfortable with what they got. They know what they got.
Mm-hmm.
And we've taken chances and like, man, some of those are like whoa. And you know, you're looking at like this one, $1 million that they're willing to throw out to us and say, hey, if you give me a chance, let me prove to you what we got. And they're that confident in their product.
Oh, that's the point that the president came down to back this product. To me, that's a point.
Yeah.
And to hear it from him rather than a salesman,
Yes, sir.
gives me a whole lot more confidence that it'll be backed up.
You got his word, not the sales.
So when they're gonna replace this head on that old base, they have to pull the whole thing out of the ground, or?
No, so this one has a little anti-tamper thing. They'll have to get down in the hole, they'll still have to get all the dirt out of there because it just happens that they always fill with dirt. They'll get in there, they'll undo this key, this thing actually just pulls off, the replacement one will go on, they'll secure it with a new anti-tamper. It'll have the cord just like you're seeing there, that'll come up, they'll attach that to the radio extension on the top with the mushroom cap, and so it'll sit flat just like you see now, other than where we've had them ripped out of the ground by people, but
Anti-tamper.
Trust me, people still find a way.
They find a way.
Heaven range.
I don't love meters. I've seen magnets, I've seen little water. Somebody drilled a hole in the glass.
Mm-hmm.
I had to call knock at the door and say, how'd you do that?
they get creative.
Yes, sir. Even though they would cut the seal, put it upside down, it's still registering, but I'm sorry. Good work, guys.
I kinda like that they has that
No spinner.
rotary.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes. Cause those other ones, I can open it up and
You can't
at
tell
least a
what-
rotary, you know that there's water going through it.
Yeah. Or you got a leak because it's going real fast.
Oh, yeah. That's an easy way, with those, the other ones that we have, what are they, the RG3? Being digital, they don't read like that.
No, they read when they hit the mark for the next ticket.
Ready, man? No, go ahead.
Oh, no, one more question. At one time, years back, we had customers or a customer that would put magnets on top of those meters to slow them down. They can't.
We had people on electric meters, we had
No,
people
on water meters.
But on electric meters also,
Uh-huh.
we had customers put magnets all over, because inside the old meters,
Uh-huh.
the glass meters, the dial, there's magnets in there. It doesn't help.
It doesn't?
No.
But-
But I don't know about these though.
So with the brass body, this protects it. You know, brass isn't magnetic,
Right.
and so it doesn't. You'd have to have a super powered one, you know, hooked up to a battery for it to reach through the brass.
And usually two magnets, if they
Opposites.
you know, they opposite, they kinda, they don't join
And
unless, you
it's
know.
also a ceramic magnet,
Oh.
so it's non-ferrous, and so they've got to know that. Find a way to-
Because this gentleman had a real nice yard, no pump, but that's what he was doing with the water meter until they go check, and he always made sure he took it off before they went and checked. Got caught, got put in jail too.
People.
Why, his wife called me up that night, I said, he got caught.
Alright, so I need a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion that we approve, resolution 20-06-13R, accepting a bid for retrofitting of water meters, registers, and purchase of new meters from Center and authorizing funds in an amount not to exceed $1 million, as presented by City Manager, Mr. Sessions.
Second.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Saldana, second by Councilman Diaz, to approve resolution 20-06-13R as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
The first meters we bought that were similar to those cost us $1 million, so that was about 20 years ago.
So we got a good price.
So we got a good deal.
Well, just with what's happening, you know, with our water today, hopefully some of these meters will, you know, they're accurate, but there's things happening out there because they're, you know, some of the phone calls that I've gotten from customers, you know, they're a one person family, just themselves, or two, just a couple, and some of their water bills are, I mean, ridiculous. And for the consumption that I've seen, you know, we're five, and I had a gentleman call me and I asked him, well, how much did you use? And it's just, and I know that they're a couple, and they use, and there's 6 of us in my house, and they use a hell of a lot more water than I do, and they don't water their yard. I said, oh, so
Sorry,
I don't know if they have a leak or something.
We're washing his car every day.
One of the things that we'll benefit from, and thank you for agreeing to do this, because this is an operational need. So thank you very much for approving this purchase. One of the things that we're going to be able to do with the AMI system is to actually get hourly reads in the office. What that means is that we're able to provide that analysis to the customers when they come in. I don't know if you all hear the same stories that we do, but there's, you know, certain lore when you're working for a city about things that people have done to get out of their bills, like putting magnets out there. You'll hear stories about 1 or 2 people that live in a home, but their bill is just out of, you know, beyond imagination. And with an AMI system, you can go in and you can see, okay, well, they're out at work today. Somebody, I don't know if it's a neighbor or whoever else, is filling up their pool hooked up to the other guy's house. If they're not home and they don't have a leak and they're using water, you know someone's up. And we're now going to be able to do that. We're going to be able to analyze those kinds of things. People will be able to put requests on their account to say, I want to know if I'm going over this amount in a month. And we can put that on there. It'll flag it when they get over that amount, and will be able to help them curtail their own usage, but also stolen water, leaks, all those things that we should have been able to do the last 3 years. If this works the way that we intend it to work, we'll be able to start doing it. Doesn't necessarily mean that we'll always make the customer happy, because if they're using that much water, they're using that much water.
That's right.
And then it's an education, and we talk about that quite a bit, that it's an education of how to conserve water and be aware of how much you're using. But we'll be able to at least get them better answers than we are today.
Thank you, sir.
My wife complains when she pays the water bill, to me anyway. And I tell her, would you water? We have a water well. She uses it, but she still likes to use the water hose. I think it's just something that relaxes her, yeah. So I don't say anything. I just pay up.
And listen to her complain.
Okay, we're going to number 12, discuss consider resolution 20-06-14R, interlocal agreement with TxDOT for traffic signals. Mr. Swanson?
Mayor and Council, this is a resolution to allow me as city manager to sign paperwork associated with interlocal agreements and advance funding agreements with TxDOT. These are the signals that we're working on 285 and Country Club. They're picking up the signals on 17, which is great, because that means that we're not having to come up with that money. But they want to know that once it gets to the point of letting, that the city will pay for that. And so you are acknowledging that we will pay for the signals that were requested to be installed. In talking with TxDOT, we have heard time and time again that you're welcome to put it on our list, but our list is long, and you're going to be waiting around a while. By the city and the other entities volunteering to pay for the stoplights, we can do a local letting, we can get them bid and put in. This is going to be especially important because of the grocery store and the city's commitment to get a stoplight in at the intersection of 285. So this is the legal requirements in order for us to partner with TxDOT to get these done.
And we budgeted this last year, didn't we?
So we had money budgeted in Lincoln Street reconstruction, which we were going to put a light there even before we had heard about the grocery store. And so we do have that money there. We did pull back some of that money back into capital to make sure that we've got a good cushion there, but we left money in there for these lights. Average for an intersection is about $500,000 for a stoplight on all four corners. So they're not cheap.
Well, you know, just thinking a few months back, it would have been great to have some of this stuff. You know, we were complaining about the traffic, the trucks, and all that. Right now, it's kind of, we're back to normal, but that normality is only for a little while.
We hope.
We hope.
We hope.
And everything is the way looking, everything's gonna. The oil field didn't die. They're there. They're just waiting.
Yeah.
Waiting for the right moment to turn the switch on, because they haven't stopped. So with that being said, what we had before 3-4 months ago, we're going to have it again, and we'll probably have it even more, because just looking at what the reserves are out there that we haven't even tapped in yet, they still want them, and they're going to get to them. They're just it's a timing issue, but we have to be prepared. The store is going to radiate that little intersection right there. That's a lot of traffic through there. From Walmart to the store to everything in that area.
So if approved, you're giving me permission to do the paperwork for this. You're not appropriating funds. And so we won't appropriate funds until we actually receive bids back, at which time the city will have have the opportunity to say yea or nay, we're not moving forward, at least with this. And so no money is part of this agreement. We're essentially entering into an agreement with TxDOT that if they take on this project, that we will pay for it.
And they're about, what did we say, 200,000 apiece?
About 500,000 per intersection.
Need a motion?
I'll make the motion, Mayor, to consider resolution 20-06-14R interlocal agreement with TxDOT for traffic signal as presented by Seth Sorensen, City Manager.
Second?
Go ahead.
Okay, have a motion by Councilman Teh, second by Councilman Baca, to approve resolution 20-06-14R interlocal agreement with TxDOT for traffic signals. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Any reason to go into executive session?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We will now go into executive session under Texas Government Code 551-071, 551-072, 551-074, 551-087. Time is 8:15 p.m. Time is 8:42. Is there anything to come before the council during closed session? No? Okay, we'll go ahead and go on to discuss items for next city council agenda.
Mayor, I'll let y'all decide if y'all want to put anything on the agenda for the mask issue.
I think we should.
The governor has said that cities can't enforce a mandatory mask against individuals. The governor has said that cities can order that businesses order that everybody that comes in a business wear a mask. But then the governor says you can't enforce individuals that violate that. So where does that leave you? One alternative happened this week in Alpine, and they passed an ordinance that said that every business has to have a sign, and it's up to the business. One sign can say, you can't come in unless you're wearing a mask. Everybody in the business wears a mask. Or if the business doesn't want to do that, you can have another sign that says, we recommend you have a mask, but you don't have to have a mask. You can come in without a mask. It's up to the business which way they want to operate the business. So that's one way to do it. You can just, it's almost the same as if the mayor and the council just starts telling everybody in town, just keeps communicating. So masks help slow the spread of coronavirus. You know, wear them like you are. Anyway, if y'all want to discuss that,
I think so.
I think so. As an agenda item next time, I could give you all the legal alternatives, and y'all can decide what you want to do for this.
Now, how is Marfa doing it, man? Yes, sir.
Marfa gave a mandatory that everybody has to wear a mask, but then they have exceptions. There are about 20 different exceptions.
No.
Except if.
So, and then Presidio did it, sort of like Alpine, that said every business has to have a sign that says you have to wear a mask, but then Presidio said any business that doesn't want to have that sign can apply to the city manager and have the other kind of sign that says, I don't want to have a mask. So if you're a restaurant or a gym or some business that doesn't want to have people wearing masks, you can give an exception.
Several restaurants I would have gone to Midland, the staff, waiters, everybody's wearing masks. You're not required to wear a mask, but then they give you a throwaway menu. Or they'll bring the menu and read through it, and I'm like, I gotta hold it so I can see what I'm. But they're strict about it.
So the governor today stopped the opening of Texas. He had it tiered where it's going to pretty soon it's going to be 100%. They sort of put a pause on that. Now things are going to be paused at 75% open right now for restaurants and things until he sees how things go.
Okay, we'll discuss that definitely. Okay, anything else, guys? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, and we can all go home. Now you can present this thing on video, we'll watch it on video.
You know, second? Second. Okay, I have motion by Councilman Arona, second by Councilman Thames to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Adjourn. Time is 8:46.
I tried.
That was worth a shot.